This is a friendship that'll never ever end.
Hello and welcome to Unveiling Reality. How's everybody doing this evening? Hope you are living well. Tonight we have a very special Unveiling Reality. We're going to be watching the GOP, the third RNC GOP, whatever you want to call it, debate. And we're going to be joined by our good friend, Mark Babitz and Katelyn Comments. So let's go ahead and say hello to all the people in the front row. Suzanne, how you doing? Talking Trash and Truths. How's it going? Jacob Pete, say, hey, what's up, buddy? Oh, yeah, man, we're going to have a great time tonight. So let's go ahead and bring in our first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him, you love him. And here he goes.
Well, I'm not the kind to kiss and tell, but I've been seen with Farrah. I've never been with anything less than a 9. So fine, I've been on fire with Sally Field, gone fast with a girl named Bo, but somehow they just don't end up as mine. It's a death-defying life I lead. I take my chances. I die for living in the movies and TV. But the hardest thing I ever do is watch my leading ladies kiss some other guy while I'm bandaging my knee. I might fall from a tall building, I might roll a brand new car, 'cause I'm the unknown stuntman that made Redford such a star.
There he is, Mark Babitz. How you doing, sir?
Not too bad. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing great, man. It's been a while, but man, it's so great to see you, dude. You look great. Man, it's so awesome that you're back.
It's just living life, man.
Living life, man. It's been a while, but just living life, man. How's everybody doing over there in the Elon Survivor group?
Well, you know, every day is a new day, and everybody just gets along. You know, just moves along. You know, it is what it is. A regular life. You know, do people care about things these days? I mean, there's so many big fish on the fryer right now that nobody thinks about child abuse or neglect. It's just a given thing. The land in the world of abortion, if you know, it's a whole nother topic. It's just, yeah. If you don't want to save the life, what do you care about what happens to it afterwards, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, I hear that.
That's my viewpoint, at least.
I hear that. We actually just did a show on Sunday. Over on I got a new show, by the way, on Sundays. It's called Old School Watch Party Sundays. We watch old documentaries and kind of dissect them and kind of reanalyze them from back in the day. But we had a very special presentation this week, or last week, I should say, where we watched Sound of Freedom. Have you seen Sound of Freedom yet?
No, that I do want to see. That I do want to see, because that stuff there is absolutely true. I mean, I've seen that, not firsthand like they're like him, but I've seen enough of the repercussions of it to where, yeah, that stuff, it happens all the time. And you know, right now we got 85,000 kids from the border. We have no idea where the hell they're at. I give you a pretty good idea where some of them are. You know,
yeah,
it's just
exactly.
That's the sick reality of the world. I mean, it's such a common thing. You know, people they think about it's just some big political thing that people make out, and they all lie about Epstein's Island and, you know, things like that. And Hillary Clinton, man, believe me, when people, especially some of these people in Hollywood, when they actually come out and just recover from whatever they were in, and they start spewing their stories about the dark sides and what goes on, it's like, man, you know, this isn't make believe. It really isn't. And people come out and they tell their stories. It's a scary world out there, and nothing's going on right now that wants to solve that problem. You know, they wiped out God, they wiped out this, they wiped out that, and you know, the people have no morals. And even if you don't use God as your moral base, they have no moral base of any. They don't even, you know, the pine tree in the yard, they don't have nothing they base themselves to. You know, when you confront them on why, they can't give you a reason. So I mean, you're really living in this land of just absolute confusion. You know, it's hard to make sense out of any of it.
The end of the movie stated, human trafficking is $150 billion a year business. The United States is one of the top destinations for human trafficking and is among the largest consumers of child sex. And it said also that there are more humans trapped in slavery today than in any other time in history, including when slavery was legal. That's amazing statistics.
Well, and but so what's amazing is you also have politicians out there, like in the squad there, they'll sit there and try to compare slavery to illegal immigration. I don't remember any of the slaves illegally immigrating here. I thought they were forced here. It was a story I always heard. They were brought here. I don't remember anyone wanting to come here. But they connect all these warped things. I mean, the LGBTQ MOUSE++ community. I saw a video the other day on YouTube. The guy was interviewing these two, and they were talking about abortions and how you save kids' lives by this and that. And hey, Susan, and how it's just a horrible thing, and they don't respect the trans community and blah blah blah. Well, just by the way, some Palestinian ladies came walking up out of nowhere. They were just kind of eavesdropping on the conversation. Man, they ripped these two fruitcakes apart. They say, first of all, you have no right to protest with us. We don't even honor you people. But these people don't even realize the stuff they get away with here and the stuff they produce here is not accepted anywhere in the world. Nowhere in the world, but we tolerate it here, and I don't know why. Why are we able to run the streets now and say kill Jews? I mean, if there's any other nationality or race and you ran around saying stuff like that, the whole world would explode. But, Israel got attacked. I mean, people forget that. They attacked Israel. 1,500 people died, massacred. And Israel just paused, ceasefire. I mean, if anybody ever stormtrooped you or your family like that and killed everything you love in front of you, when would you stop? That's the question you have to ask yourself. What would you call satisfaction? What? And then to pulls out this victimhood. It's just that's our world. That's why the Elon people, we just sit back and just watch it now, because nobody's really, there was a period of time where we sparked attention, but the way things are these days, I mean, the whole world is child abuse. The whole world is abuse. These kids grow up craziness and chaos. I mean, I saw a meme the other day on YouTube where it had Joe Biden. I'll send it to you. Kamala Harris. Had a whole list of people, and why are kids so confused? Because the Secretary of Education is actually a guy, but says it's a girl, and all these things where everybody says this and that, and they're all opposites of what they really are. But people actually they listen to this stuff. Bill Gates is not a scientist, just to give somebody a hot tip, but they follow him around and put needles in their arms and take vaccinations like this guy's got the world under control. Elizabeth Warren's about as much Indian as you are. I mean, but these people believe this stuff. Basically mostly peaceful protests when you see flames in the back. I mean, but people, they believe this somehow. They just believe these things. It's worse than drugs. Propaganda is worse than drugs.
It really is.
And it's a damn shame. You got these politicians running. What exactly does Krispy Kreme have even doing there? Why is he even there? I mean, he all he does is piss and moan, try to beat up Trump, talk about nothing. Asa Hutchinson, what's he doing there? I mean, these people, they have they're not even ranking. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it doesn't even make good sense. Why doesn't Trump show up to these for what? For what he's leading all you guys by 30, he's leading everybody by 30 points. What's the point of me taking time out of my busy schedule that now the Democrats are trying to haunt me on, and sit around for what? To do what? Listen to you clowns? Forget about it. I've proven I could do the job. None of you have. Right.
Yep. So like you said, the world is abuse. This is what we talk about on this show. Exactly. These veils of perception that we peel back and get to the truth. And that's the one thing that you, Mr. Mark Babitz, helped me realize. You helped me see the third veil. You helped me see the cycle of abuse that's going on by taking me through the journey of the Elon school survivors and the troubled teen industry, which is right down there here. We covered that. We watched the documentary that you helped produce from the school that you were forced to go to and were abused at, and it came out and helped shut down. And the cycle of abuse is what underlines all the corruption in our society. Yep.
It comes back to money and corruption.
Yep. What empowers the cycle of corruption, or perpetual corruption is powered by the cycle of abuse, which then enables the cycle of control by all these monsters that sit in the cycle of control, which do things like the child trafficking and all this stuff that's going on.
Well, I think the child trafficking now is the reformed version of what they were doing, because they were so caught in what they were doing that became so horrendous that if you notice the mental health industry worldwide, I'm not talking worldwide, but US wide, is gone. It's gone. Any state you go into, you'll find 6 or 7 shuttered institutions for no real reason. And the ones that are still kind of drifting around, there's all these allegations of this and that and everything else. But there really is no mental health. And what you're finding is the jails and the prisons are / correctional mental health facilities is what they really are. And nobody, there's no accountabilities. You know, that it's something that society has taken on to mask their old horrors, but they're doing it in different ways now. They're just letting it run rampant until people either hit the wall or get killed, one or the other.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Well, it makes broken people, which creates crime. It makes broken people, which creates corrupt people that'll do the crimes at the higher levels that will then turn around and abuse others. And this perpetuates this whole crisis chaos situation we live in, which then keeps the powers that be maintaining their wealth and their system of control.
Well, it's like the guy was talking about George Floyd the other day and about the actual autopsy of George Floyd, to where George Floyd was never strangled, his neck was never broken, there was no signs of any trauma as far as that went. But the guy did have a belly full of drugs enough to kill about 10 people. Okay, he had what, 11 centimeter, however you call it. But he had like 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system, plus some other stuff and this and that. The guy died of an overdose.
Right.
It's just sad to say, but it's true.
And is the
state's attorney?
Nope.
And the state's attorney that brought this out, she quit because when she talked to the coroner, she said to him, she goes, "Oh, why are we here? Listen, the people already decide how this has happened. These are the type of cases of people they lose their careers over. You know, you just flow with it." And this was actually brought out in his trial, because people are going to say, "Well, why didn't they bring it up in his trial?" They did. But could you imagine at that point, if they found this guy not guilty, put the real truth out there, how even worse it would have got? How jurors were so intimidated by coming out of that court with anything but a guilty verdict that they had no choice but to say guilty. You know, and this all comes out now, years later, but yet you look at posters, he's deemed a hero. And a lot of young people's minds that really don't know the ramifications of what really happened, or at least alleged to really happen, they go on believing that, oh, well, poor guy. And the society, especially Democrats, they want a society of George Floyd's. That's what they want. People uneducated, drug addicts, lost in space, to where when they get victimized, all of a sudden the flags go up. There's people that call him a community activist. Did you ever look at his criminal record?
Yeah.
The only place he was an activist in or active was prison. This guy spent, if he wasn't in jail, he was dealing drugs. I don't know who he was. Tell that to the woman they held at gunpoint and robbed that was pregnant. And he pointed a gun at her. Tell her what was he activating? I mean, you know, talk to the victims. Ask them how they feel. Are they mourning right now? You know, I'm not saying cops are good people. I'll never say it in a million years. There's good and bad in every crowd, but you know, this is one particular case that it just gets sensationalized, and here we go. You got people marching the streets, rubbing blood all over the White House and everything else, and vandalizing the place, going up into the Senate halls. Isn't that called an insurrection too?
Yeah,
I think that'd be an insurrection, but it's not being handled that way. Why? Got to ask yourself. I mean, why? You know, these people ain't chatting nice. They're about killing people and death to people.
Yeah, corruption.
You know, I mean, just
indeed.
How do you let this stuff go on?
Well, we got 4 seconds to start the debate here. We'll keep an eye on it here in the bottom corner. Looks like they're getting ready to start. We don't need the full introduction with all the production.
You gotta get somebody in office that's going to stomp this shit out and be done with it. Just be done with it. And a person like Trump would be the best because it's his last term. So, Baron, what he doesn't have to worry about any re-election problems, and just do what he needs to do. Get out that big fucking Zamboni and just clean the streets of everything.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the 5 gifted memberships from Talking Trash and Truths. Thank you so much. Let's see who's gonna. I haven't got my screen up yet. Let me get my studio screen up here and see who's gonna benefit from those great free memberships tonight. I hope that for all those who get these, they do decide to resubscribe. Looks like I got Daisy Girl. Oh, Daisy Girl's over in Rumble, and she says Mark is a hero. Mark is a hero. Lady Autumn Sky, Valhalla Awaits, and Bellator Cinex, all great people that come by the channel and support. And Susan, awesome. Yes, everybody got a new one. Hey, Anya, how you doing? lots of new members tonight. I hope you guys will all consider becoming full-time members. And looks like we're getting ready to start the debates here. I'm going to pull it up on the big screen. And we'll make sure that we cut away on commercials and have some chats. And, feel free to talk. Let's go.
Republican presidential debate. I'm Lester Holt, anchor of NBC Nightly News.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Welker, moderator of NBC's Meet the Press.
Hello, I'm Hugh Hewitt, host of Salem Radio's The Hugh Hewitt Show. We are now just 68 days from the Iowa caucuses when Republican primary voters will begin to determine their party's nominee for president. Tonight, we'll question 5 candidates seeking that nomination on how they're best prepared to be commander-in-chief. And of course, how best to bring down prices impacting Americans across the country. We have 2 hours for a serious debate on the issues that matter most to Republican voters. Candidates will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for answers and the opportunity for a closing statement. Follow-ups will be at the discretion of all of us at the table, the moderators. Invoking a candidate's name or policy does not necessarily mean the mentioned candidate is entitled to a response.
Let's go. Thank you so much.
I want to caution all the candidates not to interrupt or speak over your fellow debaters. If you talk over each other, the voters can't hear you. And given the critical issues we're facing specifically on the world stage, we want everyone to hear every word you have to say. Continued interruptions may result in loss of additional questions.
In the crowd.
And to our audience, please hold your applause so that the candidates can be heard. With that said, let's have a good debate. All right, our first question, the opening question, is one for all of you. Donald Trump is the first ex-president in more than 100 years to remain popular among Republican primary voters as his legal challenges mount. Governor DeSantis, let me begin with you on this one. Speak to Republican voters who are supporting Donald Trump. Why should you and not him be the Republican nominee to face Joe Biden a year from now?
This country is in trouble, and the elites that have put us here, they don't care about you. They don't care that you're having to grapple with higher grocery prices or have higher gas prices. They don't care that your family's less secure because of the open border that's allowed drugs and even terrorists to come into this country. Well, I care. I am not going to sit idly by and let this country continue its downward spiral. We need leadership, and we need it now. I'll take the hits. I'll take the arrows. I'll take the slings, because ultimately it's not about me. It's about you. I will fight for you. I will make sure to lead this country's revival, and I will win for you and your family. Actions speak louder than words. We don't have time for excuses, and it's not something that we're going to be able to have all these distractions. As a veteran, I will get the job done. Now, if you look where we are now, it's a lot different than we were in 2016. And Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing. In Florida, I showed how it's done. 1 year ago here, we won a historic victory, including a massive landslide right here in Miami-Dade County. That's how we have to do it. So I promise you this, as the nominee next November, I'll get the job done. And as president, I will deliver.
Your time is up. Let me turn to Ambassador Haley. Audience, let me turn to Ambassador Haley. Why you and not the former president?
Well, I think you look at the fact that we're almost $34 trillion in debt. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills. You have parents who are worried about what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. There's no transparency. We have anti-Semitism all over our college campuses, and students feel unsafe. You've got an open border where terrorists can come through, and we've got wars happening all over us, and there are dangers around us. You know, everybody wants to talk about President Trump. Well, I can talk about President Trump. I can tell you that I think he was the right president at the right time. I don't think he's the right president now. I think that he put us $8 trillion in debt, and our kids are never going to forgive us for that. I think the fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues, now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that we can't live in the past. We can't live in other headlines. We've got to start focusing on what's going to make America strong and proud. And that's what I'm focused on doing. Let's make sure we pay down our debt. I think we need an accountant in the White House. Let's make sure that we have transparency in the classroom. As a mom, I know what that means. Let's make sure we secure our borders so that our families are safe. Let's get crime down, because our families want to know that they can be safe no matter where they go. And as the wife of a combat veteran, I will tell you, the military needs to know we have their back, and we need to make sure that America is strong.
Ambassador, thank you very much. And, let me just caution the audience. Let's not go down this road. We've asked you to please, keep restraining yourselves, and would be helpful so we can hear the candidates, because these are important issues and the voters want and need to hear them. Mr. Ramaswamy, let me turn to you. Please make your case. Why should you be the nominee and not the former president?
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. It was a cancer in the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. You think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, I mean, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real, or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation? Answer the question. Go.
Yeah. I like that. Woo! I just sit there and smiles like a little devil.
We need accountability, because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story. And they're going to rig this election.
Your time is up. Let me turn to Governor Christie. Why you?
Yes.
Let's not do this. Let's not do this. Let's let the candidates speak. Governor Christie, why you and not former President Trump?
Well, Lester, look, you said it at the beginning of the debate. We are dealing with extraordinarily important issues in this country right now. We have our greatest ally in the Middle East under fire from a terrorist group that has committed to wiping them and every Jewish person in this world off the map. We have Ukraine
mouthpiece
with Vladimir Putin, a communist KGB dictator who wants to put the old band back together. He's starting in Ukraine, and he's going to move to the Baltics and Poland after that. We have inflation in this country that is choking every American family that wants to try to rise up and give their children a better life. And tonight, we need to decide which president is going to be the one to tackle the big issues, who's going to make this country look once again, not just inward, but look outward at the world and say America is the country, the indispensable nation that makes this a safer world. And in a safer world, American innovation, American hard work has always been the thing that has driven our country to greater things. I'm going to be the president who will do those big things. We're not going to be small. And I'll say this about Donald Trump. Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country. And it needs to be said plainly.
Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Senator Scott. Senator Scott, you've said former President Trump can't win. Make your case to Republican voters.
Well, certainly. What I would say without any question is that the truth of my life destroys the lies of the radical left. We need a president and a candidate who will actually help our base solidify and attract independent voters into our party. The Great Opportunity Party is now winning back African-American voters and Hispanic voters because we are working on a foundation based on faith. Our nation is facing some deep challenges. It is the loss of faith in this nation that is a part of the erosion that we're seeing every single day. It's restoring faith, restoring our Christian values that will help this nation once again become the city on the hill. When Ronald Reagan talked about the city on the hill, he was coming from Matthew 5. When President Lincoln talked about a house divided, that was Mark. Our founding documents speak to the importance of a faith foundation. You don't have to be a Christian for America to work for you, but America does not work without a faith-filled Judeo-Christian foundation. I would be the president that helps us restore faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in our future. Without that focus, none of the issues, the policies matter. We have to get back to being a nation that is, in fact, the city on the hill, that believes in each other enough for us to fight for that future.
Senator Scott, thank you. We're going to turn now to the challenges facing
Buy any of that?
the next commander-in-chief. You'll all be fielding questions first from me and the Republican Jewish Coalition, and then from Kristen and Hugh. So as we continue forward, the Israel-Hamas war is barely a month old. Tonight, Israeli troops are fighting inside Gaza City with over 200 hostages who remain captive there, and civilian casualties mount inside Gaza. As President of the United States, what would you be urging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do at this moment? Governor DeSantis.
I would be telling Bibi, finish the job once and for all with these butchers, Hamas. They're terrorists. They're massacring innocent people. They would wipe every Jew off the globe if they could. He cannot live with that threat right by his country. That Hamas should release every hostage and they should unconditionally surrender. I'm sick of hearing the media. I'm sick of hearing other people blame Israel just for defending itself. We will stand with Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And I can tell you, as governor, I actually did something about it. Biden's neglect has been atrocious. We had Floridians that were over there after the attack. He left them stranded. They couldn't get flights out. So I scrambled resources in Florida. I sent planes over to Israel, and I brought back over 700 people to safety. There could have been more hostages had we not acted. And I'll tell you this, I met the first plane load when they came to Florida, and one of the mothers pointed to a 6-year-old daughter, and she said, my daughter had been saying the last 2 nights, Mommy, I don't want to hear any more bombs, no more rockets. I just want to get back to Florida. So there's a difference between words and deeds. We acted and we saved lives.
Thank you. Ambassador Haley, what would you do? What would you be urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do? Would you consider a humanitarian pause, for example?
The first thing I said to him when it happened was I said, finish them. Finish them. And the reason is I worked on this every day when I was at the United Nations. And we have to remember that they have to, 1, eliminate Hamas, 2, support Israel with whatever they need, whenever they need it, and 3, make sure we bring our hostages home. We need to be very clear-eyed to know there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran. There would not be the Houthis without Iran. And there wouldn't be the Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq that are trying to hit our military men and women if it hadn't been for Iran. And who is funding Iran right now? China is buying oil from Iran. Russia is getting drones and missiles from Iran. And there is an unholy alliance. We need to be clear-eyed. The last thing we need to do is to tell Israel what to do. The only thing we should be doing is supporting them and eliminating Hamas. It is not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to this Islamic terrorism, and we need to make sure that we have their backs in that process.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy. Mr. Ramaswamy, any daylight between you and the candidates we just heard in this issue on what you would tell the Prime Minister?
Not in terms of what I would tell the Prime Minister, no. In fact, I would go one step further. The founding vision of Israel was based on the idea that they don't want to depend on anybody else's sympathy or direction in defending themselves. So what I would tell Bibi is that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend itself. I would tell him to smoke those terrorists on his southern border, and then I'll tell him as President of the United States, I'll be smoking the terrorists on our southern border. That's his responsibility. This is our responsibility. That's how we move forward. But I want to be careful to avoid making the mistakes from the neocon establishment of the past. Corrupt politicians in both parties spent trillions, killed millions, made billions for themselves in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting wars that sent thousands of our sons and daughters, people my age, to die in wars that did not advance anyone's interests, adding $7 trillion to our national debt. And Joe Biden sold off our foreign policy. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine. That's why we're sending $200 billion back to that same country. The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that that's wrong. Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
All right, Mr.
Ramaswamy,
thank you. Senator Scott, yes. Senator, same question to you. You're the president. You're on the phone in the Oval Office with the Prime Minister. You tell him what?
Well, number one, I would tell Prime Minister Netanyahu, not only do you have the responsibility and the right to wipe Hamas off of the map, we will support you. We will be there with you. We'll stand shoulder to shoulder. There will be no daylight. But I would change the station a little bit, though, and head back home to America. I would say to President Biden, diplomacy only is a weak strategy. Appeasement leads to war. From President Obama to President Biden, Obama sent millions to Iran. Frankly, President Biden has sent billions to Iran. That is why I've said that there's blood dripping from the hands of President Obama and President Biden. I would tell President Biden with great clarity, if you want to stop the 40+ attacks on military personnel in the Middle East, you have to strike in Iran. If you want to make a difference, you cannot just continue to have strikes in Syria on warehouses. You actually have to cut off the head of the snake, and the head of the snake is Iran and not simply their proxies. In order for us to have a powerful response from America, we have to be in a position of strength. As President of the United States, my foreign policy is simple. You cannot negotiate with evil.
Left-right paradigm
you have to destroy
Life was good for them back
All right,
then.
Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, I want to get you to weigh in here.
Look, Lester, these problems are so big and serious that the first thing I would say to Prime Minister Netanyahu is pretty simple.
Where's
America
McDonald's?
is here, no matter what it is you need at any time to preserve the state of Israel. Remember that Hamas's main goal is to get rid of Israel, is to get Israel absolutely off the map. Now, there are three things I think I would say to him when he asked for advice. The first I would say is that it is absolutely your obligation to protect the territorial integrity of Israel. Secondly, to make sure you protect the security and the safety of your people. Every time something happens to compromise either one of those things, it creates greater unrest in the entire region. Second, you must go in and make sure that Hamas can never do this again. The fact is that Israel and their intelligence community failed. They failed here, and they failed the people of the state of Israel. And so we need to work closely and better together to make sure, one, that they're degraded, and two, that we know everything that's going on inside the Gaza Strip when it's going on, so that something like this can't happen to kill 1,400 individuals again. And the third thing is to keep your eye on the ball. Make sure that we continue to isolate Iran, work with the reasonable nations in the Middle East, the other Arab nations who want to partner with you, and make sure that we continue to isolate Iran so that their only friends in the world are the part of the evil foursome: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea.
Governor Christie, thank you very much. And we're going to continue in this vein right now with a question from Matthew Brooks, the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, a partner of the Republican National Committee in this debate. Here it is.
Given attacks by Iranian-backed proxy groups on U.S. military bases in Syria and Iraq, attacks that have wounded approximately 24 of our U.S. servicemen, do you support the use of military force by the United States against Iran?
Yes, I'd first like to say they're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
Doesn't change the fact that
the second thing that I will say is I wear heels. They're not for a fashion statement. They're for ammunition. What we need to be doing for Iraq and Syria is, first of all, the idea that our men and women could be targeted and that we've allowed almost 100 hits to happen under Biden's watch is unthinkable. We need to understand this is Iran giving the green light, telling them what to do, and we shouldn't be doing the tit for tat like what Joe Biden has done. We need to go and take out their infrastructure that they are using to make those strikes with so they can never do it again. Iran responds to strength. You punch them one and you punch them hard and they will back off. But what we don't need is Biden falling all over himself to get back in the Iran deal, him giving $6 billion to get 5 hostages home, him telling Netanyahu now that he needs a pause or a ceasefire. We don't need him going and sitting there tiptoeing around Iran because he thinks they're going to do something. You don't respond to an enemy and a terrorist with fear. You respond with strength. When you do that, that's when the world pays attention, and that's when Iran stops.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, if I can continue with you. Just today, the U.S. launched another one of its limited airstrikes against targets in Syria, this time Iranian-linked facility. How far would you go militarily to hold Iran accountable?
Well, first, Matt, thanks for your question, and I appreciate what you've done over the last month. I know it's been very difficult for the community, and appreciate you guys rallying together in difficult times. I actually served in Iraq back in the day, and we had al-Qaeda in Iraq. You had Shia militias that were funded by Iran that were killing hundreds and hundreds of U.S. troops. And as commander-in-chief, I am not going to put our troops in harm's way unless you're willing to defend them with everything you have. Biden has them out there. They're sitting ducks. He's doing glancing blows. That's just inviting more attacks from the Iranians. I would say you harm a hair on the head of an American service member, and you are going to have hell to pay. We are not just going to sit there and let our service members be sitting ducks, and that's true whether it's Iran or whether it's any country on the world. We have to be strong, and we have to defend the people who defend us.
All right, thank you, Governor. And now our second and final question from Matthew Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Please watch.
Jewish students across the country are threatened and under attack. What do you say to Jewish students on college campuses who feel unsafe given the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism? And what do you say to university presidents and college presidents who have not met the moral clarity moment to forcefully condemn Hamas terrorism?
Mr. Ramaswamy, would you like to take that one?
Absolutely. I think the scourge of anti-Semitism across this country, including at places like my alma maters and places like Brooklyn Bridge in New York, it's sad to see, but here's what history teaches us. Anti-Semitism is a symptom of a deeper cancer in a country and a society that is lost, and we are lost. Several years ago, when I wrote my first book, Woke Inc., I was talking about they were chanting death to America. Death to white people, death to Christians. Nobody was waking up back then. Now it's even bad. Now they're saying death to Israel and worse. So it is wrong, but we have to get to the root cause here. Now, I think it's really important that we do this through leadership, not censorship. Leadership means fill that void with purpose and meaning. Dilute this wokeism and anti-Semitism to irrelevance. These kids, they have no idea what the heck they're even talking about when they're siding with Hamas over Israel. They are fools. But I also want to caution here, if we go the direction of Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, with whom I respectfully disagree on this issue, pro-censorship, telling student groups to disband, mark my words, soon they will say if you question a vaccine and its side effects, you're a bioterrorist. Soon they will say that if you show up at a school board meeting, you're a domestic terrorist. Soon if they say that J6 prisoners should be released, you're an insurrectionist terrorist. So that's where this road ends. We don't quash this with censorship because that creates a worse underbelly. We quell it through leadership by calling it out. These university administrators have lost their way, and we need leadership at the top in the United States of America that restores our founding values and that has no place for this kind of anti-Semitic hate. That's where I stand while respecting our Constitution.
Your time is out. Senator Scott, let me get you to weigh in on what you just heard.
So, let me just say to every single university president in America, federal funding is a privilege, not a right, number one. Number two, to every student who've come to our country on a visa to a college campus, Your visa is a privilege, not a right. Number 3, any campus that allows for anti-Semitism and hate, to allow students to encourage terrorism, mass murder, and genocide, you should lose your federal funding today, period. To all the students on visas who are encouraging Jewish genocide, I would deport you from those campuses. We have to stand strong with our Jewish Americans. At the end of the day, we should not have our Jewish students in a library being told to hide.
What's up, Thomas?
On our streets in New York. A Jewish citizen has the right to walk on the streets of America with no fear. They have the right to go to college campuses, go to class, and not fear. We will restore that. I started working on anti-Semitism on college campuses in 2017, because even then there was a rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. We must force the people off those campuses and
Senator
frankly,
Scott, thank you. Let me
out of our country.
Let me turn to the Governor DeSantis here. What do you think about what he just said?
I was the first presidential candidate to say, if you are here on a student visa as a foreign national, you're making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home. No questions asked. Second, I have friends here in Florida who their kids do not feel safe even going to university campus at all outside of the state of Florida. You have Jewish students fleeing for their lives at Cooper Union. Joe Biden should have the Department of Justice on these college campuses and holding the universities accountable for civil rights violations. When you should not have money going to these places. I already acted in Florida. We had a group, Students for Justice of Palestine. They said they are common cause with Hamas. They said, we're not just in solidarity, this is what we are. We deactivated them. We're not going to use state tax dollars to fund jihad. No way. And what is Biden doing? Not only is he not helping the Jewish students who are being persecuted, he is launching an initiative to combat so-called Islamophobia. No, it's the anti-Semitism that's spiraling out of control. Right. That is what we have to confront. And as president, I can tell you this, we are not going to stand for this on college campuses any longer.
All right, Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Governor Christie, and considering what he just said, you led a state with a sizable Muslim population. Last month, as you know, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy was killed in Illinois by his landlord. His mother was also stabbed more than a dozen times in what has been charged as a hate crime. What do you say to Muslim Americans who are also feeling afraid for their safety right now?
Lester, I'm the only one on the stage who's actually had experience in dealing with this. I was appointed by President Bush to be the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey on September 10th, 2001. And when I took over that job after the September 11th attacks, I had to deal with a situation in our state that was explosive. We're the most ethnically diverse state in this country. And so first, we heard credible reports about Jewish students and synagogues being threatened in our state in the aftermath of 9/11. We made sure that we sent federal agents to those synagogues and we protected them, and the same thing should be being done now. At the very same time, I personally went from mosque to mosque in New Jersey and met with the leaders of those mosques and with the members of the mosques. And I said to them, law enforcement is on your side to protect you, regardless of your religion, if you are going to comply with the law. And we developed fabulous relationships with Muslim Americans all across the state of New Jersey, and we stopped any hate crimes that were going on either against Jewish Americans in New Jersey or Muslim Americans in New Jersey. It takes leadership, Lester, to know how to do this. You must work with both sides. Both sides need to know it, but let us never have a false moral equivalence between Hamas and Hezbollah and the Jewish people. The Jewish people stand for right and justice, and Hamas and Hezbollah stand for death.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, what do you say to Americans who are simply afraid right now in this current environment that we're talking about?
I think, you look at the country, and the country is all out of sorts. I think, look at what these kids are dealing with on college campuses. What makes me so angry is not only do you have the kids barricaded in the library, they've said they were going to shoot up the kosher dining hall. You've got kids' dorm rooms who are being set on fire because they had something related to Israel on their doors. No person should ever feel in danger like this. And this is what I would say about our college presidents, is if the KKK were doing this, every college president would be up in arms. This is no different. You should treat it exactly the same. Anti-Semitism is just as awful as racism, and we've got to make sure they're protected. And for everybody that's protesting on these college campuses in favor of Hamas, let me remind you something. Hamas said death to Israel and death to America. They hate and would kill you too. And the idea that they're talking about genocide for the Jewish people, that's not the values of America. That's not us. We're better than that. We don't need to celebrate terrorists. We don't need to celebrate genocide. We don't need to celebrate violence towards anybody. We need to go back and soul search in our country and remember what we are about. And we are about taking care of people, not going and making them live in fear because some other terrorist activity says they want to destroy them.
Ambassador, thank you. Kristen.
Lester, thank you. This is another question for the entire field, so you will all get a chance to respond. But Senator Scott, I'd like to start with you. The United States has given Ukraine financial and military support since the war began more than 600 days ago. President Zelensky told me on Sunday, if Russia isn't stopped now, quote, the price will be higher for the United States, and Americans would be forced to, quote, send your sons and daughters to defend NATO countries. Senator Scott, where do you stand on more funding for Ukraine?
I certainly have been very supportive of Ukraine. I believe that ultimately we should make sure that the President of the United States states what is America's national vital interest in Ukraine. It is actually in degrading the Russian military. We've been very effective using our resources and our weaponry and the incredibly high price of Ukrainian blood to achieve that objective. Every day we get closer to the degradation of the Russian military, and that's good news. But the American people are frustrated that they do not have a president who reminds us and tells us, where's the accountability? Where are those dollars? How are those dollars being spent? We need those answers for us to continue to see the support for Ukraine. And at the same time, I would say that a package that's been offered by the president for Ukraine and Israel, that's the wrong approach. We need to focus specifically on providing Israel with the $14 billion that they need so that we show the world that we are 100% undeniably standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. And then as we turn away from that direct support for Israel, we should go to our southern border and close our southern border with the resources necessary. I believe that we have sleeper terrorist cells in America. Thousands of people have come from Yemen, Iran, Syria, and Iraq. If we are going to deal with the national security emergency at our border, we have to do it now.
Senator Scott, thank you. But just to be very clear, if you were president, if you were in the Oval Office today, would you sign off on more military funding for Ukraine, or would you discontinue it?
Bottom line is we have to first have the level of accountability that allows the American people to understand where the resources have gone. Number one. Number two, after we have that responsibility taken care of and accountability, then we have an opportunity to look at the overall strategy that helps us degrade the Russian military while we use our resources and, frankly, keeping our NATO partners safe from the Russian military is absolutely essential. As you understand, Article 5 would require to support and to defend NATO, our troops on the ground. The fastest way for us to eliminate that possibility is for us to destroy, to the extent possible, the Russian military. By doing so, we actually achieve the objective of keeping our military home. And that's good news.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funding?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. And I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties. It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic. It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is not democratic.
Boom.
More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream media. The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk. These are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you. Those are the hard facts. And so to frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one time
Ramaswamy, thank you. That's time.
At least to condemn their banning of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. We asked the questions. Ambassador Haley,
well, she deserves to
what
answer.
is your take on more funding for Ukraine?
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see
The fact of the matter is she doesn't answer
So this
the
is what I will tell you.
We're driving Russia
Hold her to accountability.
Ramaswamy,
because of
you
these
had your
foolish
time to
policies.
talk. The ambassador has the floor.
Thank
Ambassador,
you. The
please.
first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine. We all know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin. And here is a freedom-loving, pro-American
We all know he
country
didn't do it when Trump
that
was in
is
power.
fighting for its survival and its democracy. No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked
That's
for it,
cash.
this war would be over.
It
But
costs
let's
money.
also remember this. When you left Afghanistan in shambles and left them with a ton of weapons and money, it's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine, don't think for a second, now everybody wants to move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. After 9/11, we needed a lot of friends. Now is the time to get partnerships. This unholy alliance between Russia,
What?
Ukraine, and
We need
China
friends
is
after
real.
9/11?
There is a reason the
does that mean?
Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians.
Bullshit.
It's because they know that China's coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins.
Ambassador.
We have to see the combination. of
water.
this.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor Christie, what is
The
your
neocons are
take?
trying their best to
And
take
how
GOP
long
back.
should Americans be expected to help fund the war in Ukraine?
Kirsten, let's remember the last time that we turned our back on a shooting war in Europe. It bought us just a couple of years. And then 500,000 Americans were killed in Europe to defeat Hitler. This is not a choice.
I knew it. I knew it.
This is the price we pay for being the leaders of the free world. And the fact is, this alliance
man.
is not just with Russia and China. Governor Haley knows this. Iran is in the middle of this as well, and so is North Korea. And they are all working to support Russia right now. And the reason they're doing it is because dictators work together. People who believe in democracy work together. We must stand with all of those that are standing up for democracy and freedom in this world. And by the way, let's remind everybody
Neocons
of
and
this.
Democrats work together
In
too.
1992, this country made a promise to Ukraine. We said, if you return nuclear missiles that were part of the old Soviet Union to Russia, and they invade you, we will protect you. An American promise that's 31 years old is no different than an American promise that's made tonight on this stage. We need to stand by it. And those of us who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And the,
Yeah, remember that. Like, historically, when the neocons were in charge of the GOP,
absolute
what that was like.
giving in
Don't
to
forget,
dictators,
people.
which is being suggested on this stage, just shows the immaturity of the approach.
I'd like to
Governor
respond.
Christie, thank you. Governor DeSantis, I'd like you to weigh in on this idea. Are you concerned that this could become a wider war if Putin is not stopped now?
Well, any suggestion by Zelensky or anyone else that we're going to eventually have U.S. troops there, I can tell the American people when I'm president, that will not happen. We are not going to send your sons and daughters to Ukraine. I am going to send troops to our southern border. If you look at the threats that we face, terrorists have come in through our southern border. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to have the military, and I'm going to deport the people who've come, particularly under Biden, who've come from the Middle East, come from all these places. Now, Biden wants $105 billion. 60, most of that's Ukraine, including some of it going to pay pensions for bureaucrats and salaries. That is a totally ridiculous use of American tax dollars. He says he has money for border to try to do, and the media repeat that. When you look at it, what most of the money is money to process more illegal aliens into this country. How is that solving the problem? That's making the problem worse. And what does he do for the Indo-Pacific? A pittance. That is the top threat that we face. We need to bring this war to an end. We need the Europeans to step up and do their fair share. And we need to get serious about the top threat that this country faces, which is the Chinese Communist Party.
So if I may
Thank you,
respond
Governor.
to the Ukraine
Hugh.
question.
In fact, we are going to go from the hot wars in Ukraine and Gaza and Israel to what many people are calling the new Cold War with China. And I remind the audience that it's important for our visitors at home to be able to hear you, and especially for the people in Beijing to hear you. Many Republicans believe that the Chinese Communist Party and General Secretary Xi is an existential threat to the United States. The flashpoint is Taiwan. For decades and decades, the American military, but primarily the United States Navy, has deterred an attack from China to the island state of Taiwan. But Ronald Reagan's Navy of 600 ships is gone. Now, the question to you is, and I'll start with you, Ambassador Haley, because you were in President Trump's cabinet. His goal was a 355-ship Navy. That's what he pushed for. He got to 300. It's now at 291. Is that big enough to deter, and if necessary,
and they're not giving contracts out either
of Taiwan?
I know people that work on ships.
China has the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. China has built up their military. It's not just land, air, and sea. They're doing cyber. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing space. America needs to modernize our military. We need to do everything we can. The first thing is you go and you make sure you have the backs of Ukraine. That's why the Taiwanese want us to support Ukraine, because they know that sends the biggest message to China. The second thing is we go to China and we start being tough on them. No more sales of our American soil to China, and let's take back what they've already stolen. Then you go and you to the universities. No more having millions of dollars go to our universities. Then we will go and end all formal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans from fentanyl, something Ron is yet to say that he's going to do. And then we modernize our military. When we strengthen our military, when we modernize it with the focus of cyber, artificial intelligence, and space, when we make sure that we have the backs of our friends, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Ukraine, and we should be arming Taiwan. Make sure they have the equipment they need. Make sure they have the training they need now. There's nothing China fears more than knowing that America will have Taiwan's back. Let's make sure that we show it by making sure they have the equipment they need.
Governor DeSantis, my question is specifically about the Navy. It's at 291. It's going to go down perhaps as low as 280. Is it enough? And what would you build if you were going to build more?
Not enough. We have to have the ability to back up a strategy of denial of President Xi's ambitions. And if China is able to be the world's leading superpower, that will affect you and your family in ways that are going to be very bad. They will export authoritarianism all around the world as the cost of doing business. They will impose things like social credit scores and internet monitoring. So this is, to this generation, what the Soviet Union was to the post-World War II generation. I've already released a plan. We're going to get to 355 ships at the end of the first term, 385 ships at the end of the second term, but we're going to have a path to 600 ships over the next 20 years. I think the future of freedom is going to be determined in the Indo-Pacific. We have a strategy not just military, but decoupling from the economy and fighting them here at home with their cultural. You know, Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South Carolina, gave them land near a military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their #1 way to do economic development. In Florida, I banned China from buying land in this state, and we kicked out on our universities, and we kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our universities. We've recognized the threat, and we've acted swiftly and decisively.
Senator Scott, you've been in the Congress since 2011. Defense spending has fallen over that entire period of time. Where are we going to get the money, and what would you build, and what kind of ships to deter China from attacking Taiwan?
Well, two major problems with the question. Number one, we do not have currently a defense industrial bank to allow us to have the kind of production that we need in order to keep America safe. Frankly, if we are not prepared to fight and engage in 3 continents at the same time, think about where we are today. In the Middle East, we are in the midst of trying to back our strongest ally. In Eastern Europe, we've seen our resources and our weaponry help degrade the Russian military. The Indo-Pacific, we have real challenges. The long-term threat is China. Immediate threat is our southern border. In order for us to have the military to fight 3 different continents at the exact same time, we are going to have to invest heavily in our military, but we're also going to have to invest heavily in an industrial base so that we can hit our objectives from a military perspective, not only with our ships, but also with our planes. We are so old as a military that in order for us to recalibrate, we're going to have to invest. One of the things I do in my Made in America strategy is we create more than 4 million new jobs by having high-tech manufacturing come back to America, decoupling from China, so that we focus our attention on creating that industrial revolution that will be necessary
he has
for
no
us
idea
to
what he's
achieve
doing.
the goal of having a military that is ready to be
That
lethal
sounds good.
and come home
Thank
safe.
you, Senator. Mr. Ramaswamy, I'm looking for specifics. What would you build? Where would you build it? When would they be in the water? How big would the fleet get?
First answer is end the toxic divest to invest program. For people who don't know about that, we're decommissioning ships in the South China Sea. The foundation of war is economics. Rebuild our defense industrial base at home. But here's the dirty little secret. Our actual defense industrial base depends on China for the supply chain, for the F-35 jets, for the ships that we're building. Think about this. Why are we stockpiling that if it isn't to actually be strong against our enemy, China? We depend on them for that. Just like we depend on them for pharmaceuticals, just like we depend on them for semiconductors. So here's why we can't get tough with China. It's because we depend on them for our modern way of life, and we have to declare economic independence from our enemy. That's the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson, at the age of 33, would have signed. And today, if he were alive, that's the Declaration of Independence that I will sign as the next president. I do have to recognize that Ron DeSantis was correct about acknowledging Nikki Haley's tough talk when she was ambassador to the UN, calling China our great friend, bringing the CCP to South Carolina. What he left out, though, Ron, and be honest about it, there was a lobbying-based exemption in that bill that allowed Chinese nationals to buy land within a 20-mile radius of a military base lobbied for by one of your donors. So I think we have to call a spade a spade. We need politicians who are independent of the forces that increase our dependence on China. My message to Xi Jinping is this. You are done buying land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until you play by the same set of rules.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
you're kicked out of the WTO, and you actually have to have accountability for the COVID-19 pandemic financially, which unleashed hell on the world. We have to hold them accountable.
Do you have a number and a plan?
I think that we need to increase our naval capacity by at least 20% over the course of the next several years and be able to meet our AUKUS agreement standards. Right now, we are at risk of not even being able to meet our AUKUS standards with Australia and the UK. So what we need to do is have a plan that reverses the trajectory of the divest to invest program
Hugh, I'd like to
by
respond.
20% over the next 3 years.
Governor Christie?
You know, my first observation, Hugh, is that nobody answers your question. And my second observation is these 3 in the middle think they're the enemy.
Yeah, we know.
I know China is the enemy, and that's what we should be focused on. So let's be really clear. The nuclear submarines in this United States Navy is the greatest deterrent to Chinese aggression, and that is the first place I would go to increase American naval power. Our nuclear submarines are able to move stealthily, quietly, and effectively, and if we are going to deter China from invading Taiwan, the only way we're going to do it is to make sure that they don't know whether how many nuclear submarines from the United States of America are in the South China Sea and in that area and ready to strike on them if they decide to move on Taiwan. And so we, as our first priority, need to go directly to our nuclear sub program, Hugh, and we need to increase it drastically. That would be priority number 1. Ships would come next, but to me, the ships are secondary choice here. The submarines are the single most important thing that we could be deterring, that we could be using to deter China. But the other thing we could do to
More
deter
expensive
China
too,
is to let them know that the blood money they're spending for Russia in Ukraine right now will not be effective. That we send Putin home with his tail between his legs and make them understand that the same fate waits for them if they decide to move towards Taiwan with a more aggressive nuclear sub-program. We'll be able to make that threat real.
Thank you, Governor. We're going
So
to
he's
take a
saying
brief
full war
pause
against
now. We'll be
Russia.
back
Yeah.
to the
Okay,
Republican
buddy.
presidential primary debate. Please stay tuned.
All right, we got some time to talk here. This guy's down in the lower corner. So yeah, that was an interesting first half of the debate. A lot of neocons on stage, a lot of pushing for neocon policies, a lot of and then Vivek is just wiping the floor at these guys. He's worth watching this thing. If anybody is, I would hate to think that if there was never a voice up there like his, Trump did it last time. He's filling that gap, and I'm happy to see him up there just really calling out the truth. He's gaining a lot of respect from me during these debates for sure. He may be the next one.
Talking about Ramaswamy?
Yeah, he's hitting hard, man. I hope he understands
You're
the
talking
ins
about
and outs of
Ramaswamy?
Washington. Yeah, Ramaswamy.
He is a great vice president. A good vice president.
Yes.
Good
I
vice
actually can see him
president.
as vice president. Yeah.
Good. Trump
I can
gets
see
his
him doing
4
that
out,
role.
he can get 8.
Insight. Former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan
Krispy Kreme, I don't even know why he's up there.
He's a neocon shill. He's there to rabble rouse, and he's there to push the neocon talking points. And as I've been saying on the show, Mark, the one thing we can't do is hand the GOP back to the neocons, because they will get in there, change the policies without a vote, and they will slam the door on any liberty-minded establishment candidate from here on out. And that, to me, is the most important thing about these primaries, that we always have someone in there to kick the left. We have to take that
seriously. The problem with
seriously.
the Conservative Party is, and the Republicans, the biggest problem I find with the Conservative Party and the Republicans is by nature, we're all relatively independent thinkers. And we really have a hard time, and I give Democrats credit, we have a hard time falling into lockstep with each other. When one says, let's charge, they have a hard time just getting together. For Democrats, I don't care if it's over the bridge or into the water, they're going. And they stick together, they stand together. We got to stand together tighter.
Yeah, it's because most of them are very uneducated, low information people as far as politics go, and they're very emotionally driven. So they're trained up from a young age to be to have these emotional triggers, words put into their head, and all they got to do is say them, and boom, they're right behind it. They also are very averse to disappointing their peers, right? So they succumb to peer pressure very easily, and their minds are very easily controlled, and that's the problem. Like you said, and you made a great point. It is about being independent thinkers that are outside the first veil and that are seeing things truly. Of course, there is still a lot of GOP and conservatives that are still in the first veil and still believe this what they see, what they're being told by the establishment.
You got to look at it like a boxing match. You got to look at it like a boxing match. So there are very few southpaws out there. Very few. There's a number of them, but not a lot in comparison to regular right-hand boxers. So that being said, knowing there's very few left-handed boxers out there, they have to pretty much adapt to a right-hand boxer. And somehow they do it, and they're competitive, but they understand sometimes you got to play the enemy's game. You got to get the early voting out there. You got to get the ballot start. You got to do the same game they're playing. If people less intelligent than us can beat us, that's like the dog figuring out what your mail says. That's like the dog reading your mail. That doesn't make no sense.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Dog reading your mail.
Dog reading the mail. That's a good one. I've never heard that one before. Hey guys, thank you for all the great comments.
It's like AOC. She goes to the doctor every day. AOC goes to the doctor every day. Doctor says to her, your X-ray will be on in about a half hour. She goes, I never dated a guy named Rex. I never dated a guy named Ray. He goes, your brain scan will be done in about 20 minutes. It's just these people, they don't, the elevator doesn't go to the top of these people. And when you try to get reason out of them, you never get reason, and you actually never get an answer. But our society's gotten that way. And too many people are just afraid to just say what they've got to say. Speak.
Shocking.
For God's sake, speak. That's the one thing God can.
Preeminent adversary. one used to push propaganda and divide
No matter
America.
I hear you on that.
Spyware, he said, in
No matter
means
what
of
they do.
surveillance.
Okay.
Governor Christie, do you agree with Chairman Gallagher? And if so, would you ban or force the sale of TikTok?
I agree 100% with Chairman Gallagher. And let me say this. TikTok is not only spyware, it is polluting the minds of American young people all throughout this country. And they're doing it intentionally. And when you saw what happened in the last few weeks with all of this anti-Semitic, horrible stuff that their algorithms were pushing out at a gargantuan rate, this is China trying to further divide the United States of America. And this is one of the big failings among many of the Trump administration. He talked tough about TikTok. I heard him do it many times. But when it came down to it, he did not ban them when he could have and should have. And now since then, we've had an additional nearly 6 years of this type of poison.
We got someone else coming
being
in
put
here.
out throughout the United States, even putting
Let's go
aside
see
the
this full hot air, so
which we
won't
know
listen
is
to him.
going on in the theft of American personal
gives you
data and information.
Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands. You're fired.
What?
I have new representation.
Welcome, Katelyn. Comments. How you doing?
Hi, I'm so good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here for this.
Oh man, I'm so happy to have you, man. You're right in the middle of it. But meet Mark Babitz. Mark Babitz, meet Katelyn. Comments.
Hi, nice to meet you.
There you go. You're muted. I think he's muted. He says hi. You're muted, Mark. He's trying to figure it out. I can't unmute it. I'm trying to unmute him. Okay, we'll just get back to the debate. He'll say hi in a minute.
They lose. And in order to do that, it's not just military, it's economic and it's cultural. And as the dad of a 6'5" and a 3-year-old, I'm concerned about the data that they're getting from our young people and what they're doing to pollute the minds of our young people. These kids get these devices and they have a mind of their own. And I know a lot of parents are looking, it's hard to even keep it out. China's obviously the most extreme, but this is happening with other things. So we are going to do that, and we are going to make sure to protect the American people. It's a full spectrum approach to be able to fend China off. Yes, military deterrence. Yes, economic decoupling, but also their role in our culture. If we ignore that, we're not going to be able to win the fight.
Thank you, Governor. Ambassador Haley, speak to the parents out there. There are probably TikTok apps on half the phones in this auditorium.
No, I'm going to speak to the fact that 2 people hit me and you didn't let me respond. So let's first talk about the fact that they want to talk about the Chinese land from 10 years ago. Yes, I brought a fiberglass company 10 years ago to South Carolina. But Ron, you are the chair of your economic development agency that as of last week said Florida is the ideal place for Chinese businesses. Not only that, you have a company that is manufacturer of Chinese military planes. You have it. They are expanding 2 training sites at 2 of your airports now, one which is 12 miles away from a naval base. Then you have another company that's expanding, and they were just invaded by the Department of Homeland Security. So mine was 10 years ago.
You gave
Yours
them
was
stuff.
6
I
months
didn't
ago.
give them anything.
What's your story?
And I abolished that agency that she's talking about.
No,
Enterprise Florida, we abolished it. And of course, we banned
He
China from
scrubbed
buying
the
land.
website
Not
last
exactly
week.
a
Go
great
check.
recruiting pitch if you're banning them from purchasing land.
scrubbed the
So
website
we've stood
last
up
week.
and
Thank
we've
you,
done the
Ambassador
right thing
Haley.
in Florida.
Mr. Ramaswamy, we've talked about this. You campaign on TikTok. How do you get TikTok banned if you use it?
Well, I want to laugh at why Nikki Haley didn't answer your question, which is about looking at families in the eye. In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my
before
daughter
pushing
out of your
your
voice.
adult daughter. The next generation of Americans are using it. And that's actually the point. You have her supporters propping her up. That's fine. Here's the truth.
You're just
the easy
scum.
answer is actually to say that we're just going to ban one app. We got to go further. We have to ban any U.S. company actually transferring U.S. data to the Chinese. Here's a story most people don't know. Airbnb hands over U.S. user data to the CCP. Now, that's a U.S.-owned company. So this is the problem when you have Republicans that temporarily go the way the winds blow, and now it's popular to talk tough on China. When she was UN ambassador, called them, literally her words, not mine, our great friend. You can't be fair weather fans of the right policy. Get to the root cause. Even U.S. companies in Silicon Valley are regularly doing it. Cut the virtue signaling. The fact of the matter is Democrats are on TikTok today. The only person, one of the few people who is putting up content the way the actual algorithms work, speaking for pro-Israel views or others, is
Ambassador
me. And I predict
Haley,
more Republicans will join it. But stop U.S. companies from turning over data to Chinese companies. That's the real
moderators
answer,
like
not the virtue
Kristen
signal.
don't get to respond to personal attacks, but you do.
Thank you very much. You know, when he talks about me praising China, he doesn't know the fact that the reason China was praised was because I negotiated with China and Russia the largest set of sanctions against North Korea in a generation. That is literally the reason North Korea stopped testing ballistic missiles. So I said China did good on their part. That was a negotiation you could never do.
What you said,
Well,
Nikki. Those are your words, not mine. And so just own up to it.
You would never
You can
have been
change
able
your
to
mind.
get
That's
that
allowed.
negotiation
But don't
done.
lie to the people about
I
what
have
you've
fought
said or what you've done in
against China
South Carolina.
my
You have brought
entire
them to South
career
Carolina.
at the
Ron is
United
right about
Nations.
that.
Every day I fought China, and I did it
Look at the
by making
actual
sure
hard
no
facts.
one
You
could
brought
get
them to this
any
country.
agency heads in UN. I did it by making sure that we called them out on human rights. I did it by making sure that we held them accountable on everything that they did. That's the reason we got out of the Human Rights Council. That's the reason we called them out. And there's not been a day I haven't
Nikki,
stopped.
Senator
Scott, it is your turn.
Policy
Mr.
experience with the millions you
Ramaswamy.
made afterwards.
Everybody else is hanging on to the rules here, Mr. Ramaswamy. Senator Scott.
Thank you. We should. I appreciate y'all clapping for me already. This is wonderful answer. Love this. Without any question. What we should do is ban TikTok, period. Now, we saw under former President Trump, he tried to ban TikTok twice, but was struck down by our federal courts. If you cannot ban TikTok, you should eliminate the Chinese presence on the app. Period. We also should provide, in my parents' Bill of Rights, we give parents the opportunity to give their kids permission under 14 to be on those apps. I think it's incredibly important for us as Americans to take back control of the information, especially of our kids.
Want to be on it.
Where does it go? We should know that. One of the ways that we get to know that is by having a parental consent. But if we can eliminate TikTok, that is a first step.
Right?
But it's not just TikTok. China continues.
When did mommy saying no ever
kids,
stop
but they're also
somebody?
buying our farmlands. We talked
You
about
gotta
that
be
several
involved.
times there. We have to make sure that we use the tools that are in our toolkit to stop China from buying farmland near
just
our
watch it on
bases.
YouTube.
The third thing we have to do is
You don't
make
have
sure
to tell your
that
parents
they
that you want to have your
stop
Snitch
stealing
page. Why would you tell them about that?
intellectual property. They're literally stealing our IP to compete against us. My administration, we stop that day one, and we start making sure that we create six-figure income for jobs made in America through my strategy.
Kristen.
Hugh, thank you so much. We're now going to talk about Venezuela, where millions have fled political and economic turmoil. Many Venezuelan immigrants are settling right here in Florida. Former President Trump and President Biden have taken different approaches to Nicolas Maduro's regime with little result. Former President Trump put economic pressure on Venezuela and backed one of Maduro's rivals. President Biden temporarily eased sanctions to encourage electoral reforms. Governor DeSantis, do you see the political situation in Venezuela as a threat to the United States, and what would your approach be?
We should never rely on Venezuela for oil like Biden has had to go beg. I'm going to unleash all of America's energy potential. On day one, I'm taking all the Biden regulations, the Green New Deal, ripping it up and throwing it in the trash can where it belongs. We're going to lower your gas prices. We're going to create jobs. We're going to lower energy costs, but we're also going to be more energy independent and secure. We'll choose Midland over Moscow. We'll choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we'll choose Bakken over Beijing. That is good for America's national security. Biden's Green New Deal, that's good for Venezuela, it's good for Russia, it's good for Iran, and it's good for China. So I would turn the screws on the Venezuelan regime. I think it's a corrupt, dictatorial regime, and we should never go hat in hand begging for oil from them.
Just to be clear, would you reimpose the sanctions?
Yes, absolutely.
Ambassador Haley, what would your approach be?
You know, I stood on the Simon Bolivar Bridge and watched thousands of Venezuelans cross in the for hours in the hot sun holding their babies to get the one meal they might get that day, going from Venezuela to Colombia. They were fleeing socialism and begging for freedom. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to sanction Maduro. We shouldn't be getting dirty oil. And Biden just gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary priority status, which is just going to have more of them come. But on the energy side, it cracks me up that Ron continues to do this. He has opposed fracking. He's opposed drilling. Last time he said it wasn't true.
It freezes up a lot.
Everybody found out that it was true. He opposed it before Florida voters even voted on it. He was praised by the Sierra Club, and you're trying to make up for it and act like you weren't a liberal when it comes to the environment. You were. You always have been. Just own it if that's the case. But don't keep saying you're something that you're not.
Let me respond to that. Our whole energy plan, you can't get the shale without fracking. We are absolutely going to frack, but I disagree with Nikki Haley. I don't think it's a good idea to drill in the Florida Everglades, and I know most Floridians agree with me.
You banned fracking.
Thank you very much. Lester?
All right, all, thank you. Let's turn to one of the biggest issues for voters. That, of course, is the economy. This is a question that will go to all of you. An Iowa voter recently told NBC News, "How am I going to make sure my pantry's stocked without breaking the bank?" You've all said the best way to deal with rising prices is to cut government spending. But that would take time to play out, and Americans are struggling right now. Senator Scott, I'll start with you. What would you do the moment you take office to help Americans manage the cost of living?
Americans
We're
are
talking
struggling
about short-term
election almost.
My mother was a single mother who raised me and my brother in a very challenging economic situation. The first thing I can tell you is that when your gas prices are 40% higher right now than they were just a little over 2 years ago, that's not a problem for my mama. That was a crisis. The first thing I would do as President of the United States is I would sign the XL Keystone Pipeline and start seeing resources flow. Second thing I would do is make sure that there's certainty and predictability so that those folks who have the leases in our country would have the certainty and predictability to go ahead and become energy independent. We should focus not just on being energy independent, we should focus on being energy dominant. America is the home to more energy resources than any other country on the planet. We can reduce the price of energy, we can reduce the price of food and the price of electricity if we focus on my build here, don't borrow from China plan that is embedded. The Made in America strategy creates 10 million new jobs in 3 different areas. One is innovation. Second is the high-tech manufacturing. And the third is the energy economy. We have an opportunity as Americans to actually export the surplus energy that we create in our nation and disconnect from China and from murderous dictators and tyrants around the world.
Your time is up, but let me just follow up. The idea of pumping gas, of turning on pipelines, that doesn't make gas cheaper that day. I'm talking about you become president. What can you do specifically to help people feel better about their situation or be better with their situation?
Well, actually, it does, to be honest with you. The way that the economy works is it works on the ability to anticipate excess supply versus the demand. When that happens, confidence drives our prices down because we know there's going to be a greater surplus. When you allow for those who have leases to actually start drilling, to start using those leases for more energy excavation, you put our economy in the strongest position, and as a result of that, prices start going down. That is the kind of economy that, as president of the United States, I would lead this nation to making sure that we first use the resources in our own country and not going outside of our country in order to achieve our objective. You know, Proverbs 22:7 reminds us that the borrower is slave to the lender. We have become an indentured servant too often to countries like China. By having an energy economy, we start allowing this nation to once again return.
Senator, thank you. Let me ask the same question to Governor DeSantis. Can you give us some, you ticked off a number of things a moment ago, but some specific examples of ways that would put people on a better economic footing right away?
So I started off working minimum wage jobs. I did $6 an hour as an electrician's assistant. I worked all kinds of things to be able to get through school. And I did that because I believed in America, if you work hard and get the most out of your God-given ability, you can get ahead. And what's happening now, many of you are working hard and you're falling further and further behind. I've met people in Iowa, New Hampshire, and all across the country who've talked about all the burdens that they're facing with the rising prices. And I've heard from multiple people the same story. When they go grocery shopping, what they now do is they figure out what they have to take out of the cart once it's ringing up, because it rings up so much faster and so much higher at the cash register that they can't afford the full cart of groceries anymore. We have to restore the American dream in this country. What can you do on day one? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all the executive orders, the regulations, everything involving Bidenomics. I'm going to rip it up. I'm going to throw it in the trash can on day one where it belongs. That is going to give the economy breathing room. And I'm also going to rein in the Federal Reserve. They have helped create, with their reckless monetary policy, what we have faced since the COVID-19 pandemic. They botched it. Congress botched it. Both parties are to blame. Fed should focus on stable prices. They are not an economic central planner for the American people.
Governor, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, weigh in on this.
Sure.
Ways that you can improve people's financial condition in the short term.
Right. And as a CEO, the economic question is core to my vision and policy prescription for this country. Increase the supply of everything. It's the law of supplies and demand. Increase the supply of energy. That brings down the cost of energy, grows the economy. Drill, frack, burn coal.
Snafu on Rumble, how you doing?
Increase the supply of labor in this country. Stop using our taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home instead of to go to work. Increase the supply of housing. People don't talk about this one in the Republican Party. The land use restrictions are constricting the supply of housing. That's making housing more expensive for ordinary Americans across this country. So that's the true answer. And I think it takes a CEO in the White House who actually understands this to get this done. Because Americans at home, they know the Bidenomics is a lie. Prices are going up. Interest rates and mortgages to buy your home are going up. But wages have remained flat. That's the hard diagnosis for our economy. And this is about more than just our economy. I say this as a member of my generation. I'm 38 years old. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. The reason my generation has lost our sense of national pride in part is because people in my generation feel like the American dream isn't available to them. And part of the reason why is we've burdened them with four-year college degrees that did not serve their head start on the American dream. People will be more proud of a country if we're all making more money in that country. This is how we revive national pride and our identity, and it will take a CEO in the White House with zero-based budgeting, by the way, to take on the federal debt to get this job done.
Let me turn to Governor Christie on that.
Well, look, Lester, part of the entire premise of the question, and I agree with Tim on this, is absolutely energy is the key to this because it drives every one of those other prices. You know, now food gets to your grocery store, it gets trucked. And those truckers have to pay for fuel for the higher fuel prices. And when you go ahead and you tell people, we are going to unleash every bit of American energy, every bit of its potential, what happens in the futures markets? The prices go down because those people who are believing that the Biden program will continue are the ones who are bidding this up. And let me tell you the other place that's bidding it up, in the Middle East. And so if you don't believe that making sure that Israel and that Israel situation that's going on right now isn't resolved and resolved quickly as President of the United States and bring stability back, that will also not permit countries like Saudi Arabia and others to be able to jack their prices as well in what they say is in response to a crisis, when it's really what it's in response to is putting more money in their pockets. When they have an American president who knows that Israel must be defended not with humanitarian pauses and not with suggestions for ceasefire, but with letting them know we will supply them with everything they need, that will also bring stability to the market. Energy is the key to bringing this down. It's what every American family needs when they turn on their lights, fill up their car, and go to the grocery store. And we need to do that first and foremost. That's the short-term answer.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me come at this from a slightly different direction. Americans in rural communities are being especially squeezed by inflation right now. An Iowa State University study found that last year inflation cost rural households about an extra $5,000. How would you specifically help rural Americans who are suffering right now, Ambassador?
Well, I'm a product of rural America. I grew up in rural South Carolina. And I can tell you what we're seeing now in America is the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We have to go and start beefing up the middle class. And the first thing I would do is I will eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. We'll cut taxes on the middle class. But we have to stop this spending binge that's happening by Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I will make sure, one, we claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that exist, one out of every $7. We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't go back to pre-COVID levels. That will cut trillions and allow us to be safe. We also need to be not energy independent, energy dominant. We are blessed with resources. Let's do it. But the reason no one should give you a number, Hugh, on the amount of ships in the Navy is because in a few years, our interest expense is going to be more than our defense budget. So no one can give you that number realistically without first tackling what's happening with the financial situation. It would be a false number to give you that. We have got to understand this is a crisis. It is a national security concern. If we don't deal with what's going to happen with that interest expense in a few years, we're going to look like Japan, and we can't let that happen. The strong dollar matters.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Kristen.
Americans could see their Social Security benefits drastically cut in the next decade because the program is running out of money. Former President Trump has said, quote, under no circumstances should Republicans cut entitlements. Governor Christie, first to you, you have proposed raising the retirement age for younger Americans. What would that age be specifically, and would you consider making any other reforms to Social Security?
Sure, and we have to deal with this problem. Now, look, if we raise the retirement age a few years for folks that are in their 30s and 40s, I have a son who's in the audience tonight who's 30 years old. If he can't adjust to a few-year increase in Social Security retirement age over the next 40 years, I got bigger problems with him than his Social Security payments. And the fact is we need to be realistic about this. There are only three things that go into determining whether Social Security can be solvent or not: retirement age, eligibility for the program in general, and taxes. That's it. We are already overtaxed in this country, and we should not raise those taxes. But on eligibility also, I don't know if out there tonight, and if you're watching, Warren,
hey, Shizzy, how you doing,
I don't know if Warren Buffett is collecting Social Security, but if he is, shame on you. You shouldn't be taking the money. There are a lot of programs in this country that we all pay for that we don't get a direct benefit from. Food stamps is one of them.
So many people who are of retirement
fortunately, in my life, ever had me or my family on food stamps. But I'm glad it's there,
is a joke.
so that no one in this country goes to bed hungry at night if they have availability to that program. But I don't get a direct benefit. The fact is, on Social Security, remember why it was established. It was established as a safety net program to make sure that no one would grow old in this country in poverty. That's what we got to get back to. Rich people should not be collecting Social Security.
Governor, can you give me a specific age, 69, 70? What would the age be?
No, look, that's going to be a part of a negotiation with Congress, Kirsten. And hell, I'm not going to start negotiating until I get there.
All right, Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in on this, because you said in June that you would be open to raising the retirement age. Have you determined what that age would be specifically, and what other reforms are you looking at?
So first of all, any candidate that tells you that they're not going to take on entitlements is not being serious. Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare will go bankrupt in 8. Right now, you have Ron and Trump joining Biden and Pelosi saying they're not going to change or do any sort of entitlement reform. What we need to do is keep our promises. Those that have been promised should keep it. But for like my kids in their 20s, you go and you say, we're going to change the rules. You change the retirement age for them. Instead of cost of living increases, we should go to increases based on inflation. We should limit benefits on the wealthy. Bernie Marcus can tell you he hates getting that check. Limit the benefits on the wealthy, and then expand Medicare Advantage plans. Seniors love that. And let's make sure we do that so that they can have more competition. That's how we'll deal with entitlement reform, and that's how we'll start to pay down this debt.
And can you give me a specific age? Have you determined the age?
Again, you have to work with Chris. What I can tell you is it's going to be those in their 20s just coming into the system, and it should reflect more of life expectancy. It doesn't do that now.
All right, Mr. Ramaswamy. Kwame, have you determined if you would touch entitlements and Social Security? What, if any, reforms are you looking at?
So this is really important right now. We're working within the last window I believe we will have to actually fix this problem while still leaving Social Security and Medicare benefits for current seniors intact. I'll tell you how. The other candidates assume, like Nikki, that it can't be done. And on her math, she's right about it. But her math assumes $7 trillion of our $33 trillion national debt going to fight wars like in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Minus that, our national debt would be $26 trillion right now. Then you go to zero-based budgeting, which I've proposed as a CEO. It's how I've run businesses. It's how many CEOs run businesses. Don't use last year's budget as the baseline. Start with zero as the baseline and then ask what's actually necessary. 75% headcount reduction. Yes, that is severe in the number of federal employees in the Washington, D.C. bureaucracy. Shut down redundant agencies that should not exist. Deliver economic growth as a positive tailwind. I think we can get to 3, 4, maybe even 5% GDP growth if we really take the regulatory shackles off of our economy. And against that backdrop, I believe this is our last best window to be able to take care of our national debt problem through those severe measures, including sacrificing the foreign wars that many bloodthirsty members of both parties have a hunger for. That's the one secret for how we're going to be able to do this, and that requires discipline. So we can't have the first conversation we were having, sending foreign aid willy-nilly to countries whose national debt per capita is less than ours.
Thank you,
But if we
Mr.
do this
Ramaswamy.
correctly, I think this is our last window, and it'll take a CEO from the next generation to do it.
Thank you very much. Senator Scott, weigh in here. What are you looking at to keep Social Security sustainable?
The bottom line is a simple one. We have to grow our economy and cut our spending. Let me just say to my mama and to every other mama or grandfather receiving Social Security, as President of the United States, I will protect your Social Security. The fact is that we're spending today about $1.1 trillion on Social Security, about $750 billion on Medicare, about $300 billion on Medicaid, about $400 billion on veterans benefits, $1.7 trillion on annual appropriations. If we're going to actually tame this tiger, the way you do it is not by picking on seniors who have paid into a program that deserve their money coming back out to them. The way you deal with it is, number one, you have to grow your economy. My plan, Made in America, creates 10 million new jobs, grows our economy at 5%. By doing so, you add trillions of dollars of economic activity and billions of dollars to your treasury. Number two, you have to cut taxes. When we cut taxes in 2017, I wrote the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Everybody said, well, guess what? Revenue will go down. Well, in 2018, after we wrote it in 2017, what happened? Revenue went up by 3%, and the next year it went up by another 3%. So what we know is that the Laffer curve still works. The lower the tax, the higher the revenue. And finally, if we're going to deal with it, we have to take our annual appropriations back to pre-2020, pre-COVID levels of spending, which would save us about $500 billion in the next budget window. By doing
Senator,
that, we deal with Social Security and our mandatory spending.
Thank you, Senator. Very quickly, would you raise the retirement age? Would you be open to raising the retirement age, or do you rule that out?
All you have to do is go to a farm in Iowa and watch the hard work.
He's not going to answer the question
dedication.
again.
Yes or
You
no,
and I
though,
having
Senator?
a conversation.
Yes or
the
no,
answer
though?
is no, but
There,
listen to
finally,
this
God.
before you go on. Thank you. The fact of the matter is that the more physical your labor, a year or 2 or 3 more is actually challenging to the physical body. You and I might have a different perspective, but for those farmers, they're working night and day.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. Governor DeSantis, finally to you, would you be open to raising the retirement age, and how would you keep Social Security sustainable?
Well, look, as governor of Florida, I know a few people on Social Security, and I know it's important. My grandmother lived till 91, and Social Security was her sole source of income. And that's true for a lot of seniors throughout this country. So what I'd say to seniors in America, promise made, promise kept. I understand what you're going through with the rising prices, and you need that Social Security check. So we'll make sure to get that done. What can you do to help shore up Social Security? One of the things that's causing problems is the inflation. We have to reduce inflation. When you have higher inflation, the seniors get a cost of living adjustment, which means the program's spending more, but it doesn't cover the increase in the actual inflation rate. We also
Inflation
do need
is
to
the
get
hidden
to
tax.
at least 3% growth. You're never going to be able to have issues, be able to solve the budget without that. But I would note this. Congress for decades took money from Social Security. Social Security would have more tax revenue than it put out. They would take it and then they'd write an IOU to Social Security. Congress has a lot of dirty hands on this. I'm going to force Congress to stop spending so much money. And you know, one thing we have to do, we talk about the retirement age, is just something that's changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Life expectancy in the United States is declining.
So, Governor,
in this
yes
country.
or no? Would you raise it? Would you raise the retirement age?
When life expectancy is declining, I don't see how you could raise it the other direction. So it's one thing to peg it on life expectancy, but we have had a significant decline in life expectancy in this country, and that's just the fact.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Thank you, candidates. And we will be right back after a quick break from Miami, Florida.
All right, we got to talk, you guys. Some thoughts out. Katelyn, how's it going?
Oh my
Finally, you guys-
goodness.
Finally, you guys to say hello. Hey, Mark. And
Hey, what's
so what
up,
do you
buddy?
think so far?
What's
I
that?
wanted you to get to meet Katelyn formally here. Didn't have a chance earlier.
Hi,
Just
sorry I
quick
was
comments.
late.
Oh, well, we all show up when we get her, don't we? That's kind of how life is. Yeah, those guys are interesting and listen to a lot of babbling is what it is. I think really Ramaswamy would make a great vice president. DeSantis, you know, I like him. I don't like who he's trying to be right now. I think he's a great governor, and maybe that's where he should park himself, or maybe even as a vice president. Tim Scott, I have nothing bad to say about the guy. I just don't think he's the guy for the job. He always goes back to his childhood. You know, he sounds like a lawn survivor. You know, it's like it all started when I was. Life's been traumatizing since. You know, it's just I don't know. And Krispy Kreme. I mean, what's the point of him being up there? Just I mean, for giggles, could I just have his money that he blows on this stuff? I mean, it costs a lot of money to play this game. I mean, let's just be realistic about it. I mean, where does he get the dough from? Who funds this idiot? Soros has to fund it. It's got to be a Soros funding, because how else could you afford to do this? Millions of dollars just go doop, doop, doop. Oh, man, wow. I don't know.
Yeah,
I like the way Ramaswamy stood up the commentators right away. You people are nothing but fake news to begin with, so let's cut through this shit and get to it.
Yeah.
Oh, he
that was
just
very
he pulled
Trump-esque.
right from the gate. He pulled their pants up for him. Unreal. The one in the middle, the lady Katelyn, I think her name is. She's the only reasonable one. When she did her interview with Trump some time back, she actually is one of the few that just sit back and shut up and listen. You know, she'll let you at least get your point out there, and then she'll come back with what she thinks she can work with, but she doesn't argue with you and just try and dominate you like a lot of these people, and try and corner you into saying what they want you to say. She at least leaves it open there. I don't know how long her job will last at NBC, but you know, we'll see how that goes. I think she'll relax. But I don't know.
Katelyn, jump in. What you got?
Yeah, none of them are striking me as presidential material. I mean, I agree with a lot of what Mark says. Vivek would make a really good vice president. I think he's not in a place where he could be a president yet. Maybe in a few years, almost like an assistant coach, like learn on the job, and then
exactly. I think they're great.
Some point.
They're the guys you pick as your special teams that you know you can nurture and cultivate in, because they do have the spirit. They just don't have what it takes right now, and they need to see that extra push. You know, like the sensei. They need to see you cut the boards and show them how they snap. You know, and Trump has already proven he's done this. So who better to follow than this guy? You know, the more stones they throw at this guy, the bigger the martyr he becomes, even to the ghetto. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are now. I mean, this guy has popularity that you never thought he'd have. You know, and the illegal immigrants, finally the light's coming on the black community. I saw a few discussions the other day where the blacks are finally realizing this illegal immigration, it kills them. It kills them. These people come in, these people from these other countries come here fearing God and loving family. Everything the U.S. is not about right now. And you got to figure, you got 85 million black kids in the last how many years have been aborted. All these people come in, they shit out 4 or 5 kids if they don't bring them with. So it doesn't take long before these people overpopulate you and your vote becomes nothing. And in
Yep.
the
And just to
where I
wrap
live
that
at,
up,
Chicago, where I live in Chicago, on the south side and the west side, they've never gotten along. Now they love each other, but they're taking these migrants and shoving them in their communities. And now they're realizing, fucking African American shit, we're Americans. Yes, you are. You people also pay taxes just like everybody else, and they're taking everything away from you.
Right.
You know, and it's backfiring on these people.
First. Yep,
America
and American first. Yeah.
Oh,
and I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, we're gonna get back here in a second. Oh man, I forgot my thought now. Shit. That's like I was agreeing with you. Go ahead.
Black population are Americans. Forget all the others. They're Americans just like everybody else. They have the same rights, the same privileges. Realize that. Stand up for it. I'm glad they're finally standing up and saying, hey, we've had enough of this shit. This is enough. You know, you always tell us, looking out for us, looking out for us, looking out. We're all you do is shit on us. And they're seeing a good shit job right now.
Oh, and I want to agree with you about them learning, right? Because if Vivek goes and works with Trump and supports Trump and a VP, a cabinet position, something, he gets the ends with the anti-establishment side. He gets identified as the anti-establishment side. He also have to wear the MAGA moniker, which he probably will proudly wear. But that sets him up for future elections. You know, to have the support Trump has.
He's young. Yeah, he brings young blood into the system. He brings that young thought in. Trump's not somebody that won't listen. Nobody. You know, he has his way, but he's one of these kind of guys. As long as I make it seem like it's your idea, Katelyn, it's a great idea. But I have to convince you that it's your idea. You know, I'm gonna plant the seed and I'm gonna water it and I'm gonna make it grow and I'm gonna commend you all the way through. And the end result is, well, if it wasn't for her, man, we'd never figured this shit out, right, Katelyn? No, absolutely. My gosh, absolutely.
All right, here we go.
You still don't have a clue what you've done, but you're licking up the praise. Oh yeah, it must be right. And you go through life like a lot of people go through life like they get pats on the back and never know. Yeah, okay, great. I appreciate that. Like, well, what that was about.
Senator Scott, tens of thousands of Americans' families have suffered a death to fentanyl. Young people sometimes die taking one pill. What can you do as commander-in-chief on the first day to stop fentanyl and the waterfall of it into this country?
Number one, we should close our southern border. For $10 billion, we could close our southern border. For an additional $5 billion, we could use the currently available military technology to surveil our southern border to stop fentanyl from crossing our border. I've already led on legislation that would sanction the Mexican cartels. If you remember the path, the precursors come from China, then they are manufactured in Mexican labs, and then the Mexican cartels bring them across our border. By sanctioning their accounts and eliminating their cash, we starve them of what they need. Number one, closing our southern border makes it nearly impossible to get in. The military-grade technology is a backup, making sure that we not only stop 70,000 deaths in the last 12 months because of fentanyl, it also allows us to deal with the human trafficking travesty that is entering in our country in the same path. If we are going to deal effectively with 100,000 overdose deaths in our country and the 70,000 that is directly linked to fentanyl, we have to deal with our ports of entry and deal with our southern border. If we do that effectively, we have started reducing the challenge from the outside, and then we have to deal with the challenge on the inside, which seems to be connected to a mental health crisis that is spreading throughout our nation.
Governor Christie, Senator Scott just mentioned ports of entry. 90% of the fentanyl that is seized in the United States is seized at ports of entry. We don't know what's coming in across the open southern border. You've been a United States attorney. You've taken on cartels. Can it really be done quickly? What would you do as president?
It can be done quickly in two ways, Hugh, on fentanyl. The first way is exactly as you suggest, at ports of entry. We have to beef up what our law enforcement has in terms of technology. I would invest in that as president. We need to make sure that law enforcement has every tool at its disposal to do it. Secondly, on day one, I would sign an executive order that would send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol, both at ports of entry and at the open ports of our border. Customs and Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed. There's 200,000 encounters a month over the last 11 months. We simply do not have the man and woman power at the border to be able to deal with it. And so dealing with both law enforcement, and you're right, we have done this, we can do this, but we got to give them the tools to do it, and technology is one of the biggest tools that we don't have enough of at the ports of entry. Now, we also need to lower demand, Hugh, in this country, and the way to lower demand is to start treating people again. You know, we started to do this before COVID, and we haven't done enough of it. And for every family out there tonight who has lost a loved one to fentanyl or to any other type of opioid overdose, what you know is all you want is a chance for them to win their lives back. When I'm president of the United States, we're going to call this what it is. It is a disease like heart disease, diabetes, or any other disease like cancer that can be treated, should be treated. We not only have to stop supply, but we have to lower demand and save lives.
Governor. Governor DeSantis, you have talked about using United States Special Forces to attack the cartels where they manufacture the chemicals that come from China. How often, how many, what does that look like?
Well, first, I was speaking to a dad who lost a son to fentanyl overdose. Son wasn't a drug addict. He had taken some pill that happened to be laced with fentanyl, and it was a fatal overdose. And when he told me, obviously the pain of losing a child is as bad as it gets, but he said what was salt in the wounds is that these elites in DC don't give a damn about what's going on in this country. They don't care that we have tens of thousands of opioid deaths, that the fentanyl's pouring in. They are not taking the type of action we need to. We're declaring it a national emergency on day one. I'm sending U.S. military to the border. I'm going to stop the invasion cold. I am going to deport people who came illegally. And I'm even going to build the border wall and have Mexico pay for it like Donald Trump promised. How are you going to do it? Yeah, Mexico's not going to fork over money. We're going to impose fees on the remittances that foreign workers send to foreign countries. We'll raise billions of dollars. I'll build the wall. But we are going to designate the cartels to be foreign terrorist organizations or something similar to that. And we're going to authorize the use of deadly force. We're going to have maritime operations to interdict precursor chemicals going into Mexico. But I'll tell you this, if someone in the drug cartels is sneaking fentanyl across the border when I'm president, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to shoot them stone cold dead.
Ambassador Haley. Ambassador Haley, if the United States uses special forces in Mexico without prior notice to the Mexican allies to our south, what would your colleagues at the United Nations think about that?
I don't care what my colleagues at the United Nations think. What I'll tell you is, first of all, you have to go to the source. We have lost more Americans in the Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq wars combined. We lost 75,000 Americans last year. Go to the source. It is the reason why we'll continue to say we will end all normal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans. You watch how quick that flow stops. The second thing is we'll send special operations in to take out the cartels. We need to go to where they're distributing it, where the supply centers are, and take them out. We'll put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We will defund sanctuary cities. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that everybody stays in Mexico and they never get here in the first place. And instead of catch and deport, we'll go to catch and release. I'm sorry, instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That is the way we'll deal with the border. Those are the things that we have to do going forward. But I do agree with Chris. One of the first things that we have to do is really focus on mental health and addiction centers. It is something that is needed in our country terribly because we don't deal with mental health, and someone who doesn't get care for mental health falls into addiction, and we owe it to them to treat it like the cancer that it is.
I hear you over there, Staff 2 on Rumble. I'm reading your comments.
Special forces in Mexico shoot them stone cold dead at the border.
One thing I just want to say and how we're talking about this issue is, you know, like Ron, I've actually met many parents across this country who have lost their kids to laced pharmaceuticals that have fentanyl in them. The only thing I would ask, Ron, I think you'd be on the same page with me on this. Let's not even call that an overdose. Right. That is not an overdose. That is poisoning. If you put that fentanyl in a Big Mac, we would not call that an overdose. You'd call it what it is. It's closer to bioterrorism. And I say that because as it uniquely relates to this crisis, that does warrant more aggressive means to deal with it. So there's a new presidential election in Mexico in 2024. People may not be aware of that. It's going to be someone other than Obrador, who has been a disaster in Mexico. I think he's even mentioned me obliquely in speeches to say that somebody who would do this shouldn't get anywhere near the White House. Well, AMLO, get out of the way. There's going to be someone else in charge. I hope to build a good relationship with that next president of Mexico. We'll use our own military to seal our own southern border. What we need to do is stop using our military to protect somebody else's border halfway around the world when we're short right here at home. Get serious about protecting this border. And then the other thing that hasn't been discussed is the northern border. I'm the only candidate on the stage, as far as I'm aware, who has actually visited the northern border. There was enough fentanyl that was captured just on the northern border last year to kill 3 million Americans. So we got to just skate to where the puck is going, not just where the puck is. Don't just build the wall, build both walls. Can't just complete the wall, use the military to seal the Swiss cheese for the tunnels that they're actually building underneath that wall.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what needs to be
Ramaswamy.
practical and actually get this job done.
Thank you. Kristen.
Thank you, Hugh. Let's talk now about last night's election results. Abortion rights supporters saw victories in Ohio and Virginia following earlier wins in states like Kansas and Kentucky. Governor DeSantis, first to you, how do you see the path forward for Republicans on this issue?
Well, I stand for a culture of life, and I understand that it's important that everyone gets a shot. I'm reminded of a story about a young mother who was struggling in Jamaica about 45 years ago. She was counseled to not have a baby because she was poor, baby wouldn't have opportunity, and she came close to have an abortion, but she decided to have the baby, born poor in Jamaica. And the reason I know that story is because that baby girl ended up emigrating to the state of Florida, becoming a lawyer and a judge, and I appointed her to the Florida Supreme Court in August of 2022. We're better off when everybody counts. We're better off when we can promote a culture of life. At the same time, I understand that some of these states are doing it a little bit different. Texas is not going to do it the same as New Hampshire. Iowa's not necessarily going to do it the same as Virginia. So you got to work from the bottom up. You got to do a better job on these referenda. I think of all the stuff that's happened to the pro-life cause, they have been caught flat-footed on these referenda, and they have been losing the referenda. A lot of the people who are voting for the referenda are Republicans who would vote for a Republican candidate. So you got to understand how to do that. But let's just be clear. The Democrats have taken a position. They will not identify the point at which there should be any protection all the way up until birth. That is wrong, and we cannot stand for that.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in. Former President Trump has consistently blamed the abortion issue and how Republican candidates have talked about it for their electoral losses. How do you see the path forward?
You know, I've said it before. I think you have to be honest with the American people. This is a personal issue for every woman and every man. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband, Michael, was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children. So I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, when you look post-Roe, a wrong was made right. They took it out of the hands of unelected justices and they put it in the hands of the people. And now we're seeing states vote. And what I'll tell you is, as much as I'm pro-life, I don't judge anyone for being pro-choice, and I don't want them to judge me for being pro-life. So when we're looking at this, there are some states that are going more on the pro-life side. I welcome that. There's some states that are going more on the pro-choice side. I wish that wasn't the case, but the people decided. But when it comes to the federal law, which is what's being debated here, be honest, it's going to take 60 Senate votes, a majority of the House, and a president to sign it. So no, we haven't had 60 Senate votes in over 100 years. We might have 45 pro-life senators. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president can ban these state laws. So let's find consensus. Let's agree on how we can ban late-term abortions. Let's make sure we encourage adoptions and good quality adoptions. Let's make sure we make contraception accessible. Let's make sure that none of these state laws put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty for getting an abortion. Let's focus on how to save as many babies as we can and support as many moms as we can, and stop the judgment. We don't need to divide America over this issue anymore.
Thank you, Ambassador. Senator Scott.
It doesn't even need to be debated anymore.
Senator Scott, I'd like you to weigh in. How do you see the path forward, and what do you make of what Ambassador Haley just said? Do you see this as a consensus issue?
Well, I'm 100% pro-life. I have had 100% pro-life voting record. I would certainly, as President of the United States, have a 15-week national limit. I would not allow states like California, Illinois, or New York to have abortion up until the day of birth. I certainly wouldn't not allow for governors, former governor, Democratic governor of Virginia, who talked about infanticide. We need a 15-week federal limit. 3 out of 4 Americans agree with a 15-week limit. 47 out of 50 countries in Europe agree with a 15-week limit. I would challenge both Nikki and Ron to join me at a 15-week limit. It is in our nation's best interest. And frankly, I think it's unethical and immoral to allow for abortions up until the day of birth. We have an opportunity in this nation to stop that reckless behavior from states like California, New York, and Illinois. I'd go a step further. In my parents' plan, we start by talking about funding, block granting resources to crisis pregnancy centers. We should support adoption. There are a number of ways that we can say to the expectant mother that we stand with you. We should not only be pro-life before the child is born, we should be pro-life after the child is born just as much.
Senator Scott, thank you. Ambassador Haley, your name was invoked. Would you support a 15-week federal limit?
I would support anything that would pass because that's what would save more babies and support more moms. But you have to be honest with the American people. And I appreciate that Tim keeps calling me out for this. But Tim, there was a bill last year. Lindsey Graham sponsored it. You didn't even co-sponsor the bill. And then when you first were interviewed on this, when you ran, you wouldn't even say you were for 15 weeks. What I'm saying to the American people is, let's see what we can agree on. Let's bring people together and decide what we can agree on. I will sign anything where we can get 60 Senate votes, but don't make the American people think that you're going to push something on them when we don't even have the votes in the Senate. It's important that we're honest about that.
Let me go to Mr. Ramaswamy. Would you support a 15-week federal ban? And what is the path forward on this?
I just wanted to say, I mean, I think Nikki Haley did invoke being honest. And I at least want to give credit to Tim Scott. He's honest about where he stood. And I think you should be honest, not making a political calculus, but to say, if a bill is served up, would you sign it? Here's my view on this. Speaking as a man, they say men have trouble speaking on this issue. I don't think we need to be that way. It was my home state of Ohio, I'm upset about this, yesterday, that passed a constitutional amendment that now effectively codifies a right to abortion all the way up to the time of birth without parental consent. Why? It's back to that Republican culture of losing. The Republicans did not have an alternative amendment or vision on the table. I know Ohio. I was born, raised, and I lived there. It's representative of the country. If in the state of Ohio, we talked about access to contraception, adoption, and also here's the missing ingredient in this movement, sexual responsibility for men. We live in an era of reliable genetic paternity tests that are 100% reliable. So we can say men deserve more responsibility. So we can tell women we're all in this together. It's not men's rights versus women's rights. It's about human rights. And I've come back to that case that Clarence Thomas spoke of. A pregnant woman walking down the street, she's assaulted. The unborn child dies in that assault. You find me one person in this country who says that that criminal does not deserve liability for that death. You won't find one. That says we share the same instincts on this issue, but we require, I believe, a different generation of leadership
thank you.
to actually lead us forward and unite the country on this
Thank you.
honesty.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Governor Christie, as you know, federal limits are important to a lot of Republicans. Where do you stand on this issue, and what is the path forward for Republicans?
For 50.
Sorry, oops. I hit the live button and we're in a commercial. How about that? Oh, we want to hear more bullshit from Chris Christie.
Yeah, I
Katelyn.
didn't need to hear his response.
Yeah, how about that? Little small blessings. Mark's having some connection issues. He'll be back with us shortly, hopefully. So any thoughts? Any comments?
I want to like Nikki Haley more. I do. But she's not. And T3 said it earlier in the chat. She reminds me a lot of what Palin sounded like when Palin was running for her offices. She sounds good. I want to like her, but there's just, I don't believe her when she's like, you got to be honest with the American people. I don't believe that you're being honest with me. I think that you are using that as a red flag calling card, that you are lying about something. Ramaswamy, I like him. I like him a lot. I think he uses the like, I'm a CEO and I'm a man and I'm 38 a little too much. Like get to your points, make your points, but all of them do that. They all go on these long soliloquies and stories about young mothers from Jamaica and my mama did this, and Chris Christie's talking about his donuts. They all have these long drawn out speeches before they answer the question, and that's my biggest complaint.
Yeah, there's a lot of that trying to. I guess they're trying to more humanize themselves, or as someone might say, connect emotionally. But there's a time for that, and there's a time for business. I'm kind of like a more straightforward, be direct kind of business minded, logical-minded person when it comes to that kind of stuff. Looking for solutions, looking for people who talk solutions and not BS, and answer questions directly, and then go into their reasons for why. That's what's more my approach. That's what I look for. But yeah, I think Ramaswamy again is doing a good job there. He seems to really have it out for Haley, so they got a little bit of a combat thing going on. It's fun. Christie's surprisingly being tame. Not from his past runs, he's usually a lot more animated and disruptive. I guess he's trying to play more of this civilized dude, even though we all know he's a neocon shill. A lot of neocon shills up there on the stage tonight. I don't believe DeSantis is. I think he's a better governor than he is running, or maybe a better side man. He has the right ideas. There's just something about him I don't necessarily feel comfortable with being in charge of the GOP. Like, he seems to have blind spots that could open the door for trouble. And as I've been saying since the beginning of this run, the most important thing we can do during the primaries in this election is never give the GOP back to the neocons. I mean, that's such a root cause issue that we overcome. We can't lose ground on that. And, that's why I'm firmly behind Trump and anybody who's anti-establishment. Like, Vivek is earning his anti-establishment membership clearly. He's taken on the establishment. He's calling him out with truth right on stage. That gives him the badge. Now come on in, be part of it, and become a future leader, man. I mean, if this guy continues the way he's doing, serve some time under Trump, helps him get elected, does everything he can do, and doesn't falter, he's looking pretty strong for for a bigger role in the future, in my opinion, because we're gonna need someone to carry the torch, and that's he seems like a kind of guy that could do it. More experience will help him get him into his 40s and get him into Washington and get some mileage on him. And man, he could be the next guy, and he could take 8 years and do some wonders with it. Maybe the same with DeSantis too. If he doesn't, hopefully he goes back to being governor of Florida, because I think he does a lot of good down there. But more good than bad, I guess. But he does take on the wokeness. He does take on some key issues that are as important. One thing I'm disappointed about right now is I'm not hearing enough about stopping the child sex trafficking and the things that are going on in that area. Having just freshly come off Watch Sound of Freedom, that's heavy on my mind, and I'd like to hear some more people talk about this very, very, very dire issue. So we'll see what they have to say here. Thank you, Lex, and welcome. I'm happy you're here. I saw you earlier too. Let's see. Here we go.
And that crisis is cultural and spiritual. We need a renewal, a great awakening. We should reject the left's valueless, faithless, fatherless society. We should turn back to faith, patriotism, and individual responsibility. We should stop choosing victimhood and start choosing victory. We should stop kneeling in protest and start kneeling in prayer. There are basic truths that built this country. If you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I do not just want to...
Audience, please.
I do not just want to win the battle against Joe Biden. I want us together to win the war the war for our Christian conservative
Senator Scott.
values that changed my life.
Senator Scott, thank
and
you.
built
Governor
this
Christie,
country.
you have.
That's why I'm asking you for your vote. Thank you for hosting tonight. Listen, it's a gift to be an American. And I'm running for president of the United States because I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing the division. I'm tired of seeing the anger. And I could see in the eyes of Americans
Lays the
their
jokes
exhaustion.
on the silver
Their
platter
exhaustion
for
from the
us.
petty
We don't even
Right.
have
personal
to
politics
try.
that have taken over this
I'm
country
tired. Well,
over the last
sure
number
you
of
are.
years.
You ate a few too many
I'm running
Snickers
for president to
today.
be a president of consequence, to do the big things, to make sure that America's
I'm
role in the
tired.
world
Yeah,
stays
I know
number
it's
one.
hard standing
That we
up there
stand
for
up
more
for
than
our
20
friends and
minutes at a
allies
time. I'm sure
around
it's
the
taking all
world,
the wind out of
and
you.
we stand up for what we believe in right here at home. And it's not to eliminate our differences. Our differences has always been our strength as a country, not our weakness. But you can't truly say you love America unless you're ready to open up your heart to every American. I'm going to open up my heart to every American as president, and I will make sure that I return honesty, integrity to the Oval Office. We deserve and should accept nothing less.
Governor, thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Ramaswamy.
A bunch of hot air.
Your 1 minute.
We've talked a lot about foreign wars tonight, but we're in the middle of a war right here at home. It's a war not between black and white or Democrat and Republican. It's between those of us who believe in our founding ideals and love this country and a fringe minority who hates the United States of America. And I think it's going to take a commander-in-chief to lead us to victory in that war, who first of all knows that we're in a war. Second of all, can't be captured by the special interests along the way. But third is from the next generation, somebody with fresh legs to lead us to victory. I'll shut down the deep state. I'll declare economic independence from China. I'll keep us out of World War III and then revive national pride in this country. I also want to close with one message to the Democrat Party. End this farce that Joe Biden is going to be your nominee. We know he's not even the president of the United States. He's a puppet for the managerial class. So have the guts to
Hell
step up and be
yes.
honest about who you're actually going to put up so we can have an honest debate. Biden should step aside, end his candidacy now so we can see whether it's Newsom or Michelle
But
Obama.
so should all of y'all.
Tell us the
Right?
truth.
On the same token.
Let's go, Vivek. Yeah. Good job, buddy. Good job.
Ambassador Haley, you have 1 minute for your closing.
Thank you. The world is on fire. We have a war in Europe. We've got a war in the Middle East. We've got China on the march. It is very important that we know how to defend our freedoms and how to defeat terrorism and socialism. We have to know the difference between good and evil. We have to know the difference between right and wrong. We need to know that a strong America doesn't start wars. A strong America prevents wars. And the way we can focus on that is to make sure we go back to the soul of America and be strong and proud again. And we can't do that. We can't win the fights of the 21st century with politicians from the 20th century. We have to move forward. And we can do this. I know we can do this. So join our movement. Go to NikkiHaley.com and we will once again show what America that's strong and proud looks like. God bless.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor DeSantis, your closing. You have 1 minute.
We must reverse our country's decline, and that is going to require leadership. I will take the hits. I will take the arrows. I will take the barbs, because it's not about me. It's about you. It's not about the past. It's about your future. We are going to fight for you. I am going to win for you and your family, and I'm going to lead this country's revival. As a veteran of the Iraq War and in the Navy, I will always put service above self as president. As the father of 3 young kids, I'm going to ensure that this country is left to the next generation in better shape than we found it. And as the governor of Florida, I delivered on all my promises. And you can trust me to deliver for you as the president of the United States. I am asking for your vote. I'll be a nominee that will be able to win the election. I will be a leader you can be proud of. And as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you.
Governor DeSantis, thank you. That is going to conclude our debate. The next line says, if the audience can hold their applause. That didn't work out. But anyway, for just a few more seconds, I'll ask you to just hold the applause. On behalf of my fellow moderators, I want to thank the candidates for their time and for this spirited debate. Really good, deep conversation, and we appreciate you all being here. Thank you as well to our wonderful hosts here at the Adrian Arsh Performing Arts Center. On behalf of the Republican National Committee and all of us at NBC News,
good
night,
luck.
everyone,
We're all
from Miami.
counting on you.
There you have it. Look at you. Like he walked right around to Haley. I didn't even talk to her. Vivek walked right around her. He's like, nope. There you have it.
So one thing that stood out to me, what Vivek said about like Biden stepping aside and letting the true nominee like come forward. Isn't that kind of what we're all waiting for on the Republican side? Like we know that Trump is gonna go and be the nominee. So we're all just watching these people talk. I like Vivek, but I just think some of the things he says can backfire just a little bit on him. So he needs to like watch it just a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Well, I get it, and you have to play the part when you're up there. It has to take a serious run at it. There is the outside chance that I don't know if the establishment can potentially keep Trump from running. There is some question in my mind about that. Just because all we see is this one shot after another, and they're laying it on heavy right now. And my own state of Georgia is very much part of this, and it's frustrating. It's very frustrating, actually. You see what's her face, the one lawyer who was leading the charge about the election fraud turncoat on him. I always thought I had hope for them. But I always wondered about those people that were coming out in front and acting like they had it all under control, and then just completely caved and produced nothing. So I don't know. So I guess you got to run like you're running, and I hope though he gets the Trump does get the nomination, does choose Vivek to come in and be his right hand, or at least close to it, give him some position in the cabinet, if not vice president. And for what it's worth, if DeSantis doesn't want to go back to being a governor, give him a chance, see what he'll do. If that'll help us really see whose true colors where they are. I thought that there was a blown opportunity last time to put somebody behind Trump that could actually be the next. Like I would have liked to see Rand Paul have gotten involved in his cabinet, even though we need senators, we need good people in Congress too. So it's really a toss up. We need good governors. So it's really a toss up when it comes to it. Vivek doesn't have any kind of prior commitments. So he actually kind of, in that logic, is a good person to kind of run that really feisty, go-getter, high energy vice president role. I would be happy with him as vice president. I wasn't at first, but now I feel a little bit better about that. He's just young and not quite seasoned enough. He knows what's going on. Obviously, he's very, very much awake and aware of the world. But is he seasoned enough and tough enough to take on the establishment? I mean, you see what they've done to Trump, right? That's a tough mission. And I think with some more seasoning and some more some more understanding of the insides, go in there and do it, he'll be better suited for that role in the future. We're gonna see, I believe, a series of, this is the new anti-establishment candidate, right? Like is modeled in the mold of Trump. Someone who can't be bought by the establishment, doesn't have a track record of association with them, understands and sees the problems, isn't scared to say it, and is smart enough and resourceful enough to fight their machine. And that's what it's going to take. And I think from here on out, we need more people like Vivek running and local and in statewide elections, in Congress. We need more people like that in those positions. Like if Vivek decides to, run for governor of Ohio or run for senator of Ohio, that would be awesome too. Just more people in the anti-establishment mold that are coming out, not out of politics, but out of business or out of anywhere, and they're based, and they understand what it means. They're sounding like Trump, and they're sounding like Vivek, and they're putting out good messages, and they're doing it fearlessly, and they've already become successful in their life, and they are above influence, and they're above being bought, and above being blackmailed, and falling, and they're smart enough and moral enough not to fall into the traps. Right? That's what it's going to take. If anything, Trump has set the mold for what the anti-establishment, a successful anti-establishment candidate, is going to look like. And we're seeing that mirrored in Vivek, and hopefully more. I want to see more people like him start to stand up, start to show up, and get involved. So I like the fact that he's there, because he is filling that role for Trump. So he doesn't have to sit there and they make it all about him and him taking bullets and him, potentially, getting into a strum and saying the wrong thing, that they can blow out a proportionate soundbite. Sound bites are their weapon. So that's my thoughts on that, and him, and his performance tonight was great. He did a fantastic job for the anti-establishment mindset and coalition. And I think he held himself against a lot of those neocons that were there, and they kept the Trump bashing to a minimum, which is great too.
Yeah, I didn't hear much of anything about Trump, which I wonder if that was like a ploy, try to keep it at a minimum so we can keep it a focused, debate. My one big criticism right now of the Republican Party is I really am afraid, and I think Mark was talking about this earlier, that everybody is so individual minded, and we all think on our own, and we have our own ideas and thoughts and progresses, that it's hard to get the entirety of the party on one foot. Everybody's got their own opinions and they're polling. So are you afraid? Because I am, that there will be too much divide in the Republican Party even after the nominee is picked?
I think once the nominee's picked, we have to get behind it. Hopefully all sides of the right, if you will, can get behind that and just like snap out of their egos. I do know that there has been a divide. I actually called it out a year or so ago, early on, when I was saying, there's the Ben Shapiro kind of like line of Republicans out there where they, we agree on a lot of things. We're on the same side about a lot of things, but we don't see it the same way, and we need to kind of bridge that gap. And I don't know how we do it. I know that there's a lot of internal bashing of people. If we're all on the same side, we're all anti-establishment. We may not agree with everybody and everything, but to come down on people that are actually trying to make a difference is the big problem. And that's where the difference is. The independent minded, it's how do we react to our independent minds is I think the real challenge for all of us. And I'm really going to take the side of just let's unify for the cause, right? Let's remember what we're trying to do. Let's remember who we're fighting, and let's remember that we got a job to get done. And we can't have little petty disagreements and try to bring down voices that are actually amplified right now and that could help. I mean, I know a lot of people, when I see it in the chat, have an issue with Tim Pool, right? And we can criticize him and criticize the show and criticize people on it. And I have criticisms of some of that stuff too, right? But the guy gets out there every day. He's trying to push the culture war. He's trying to do what he can in his own way to do something. And I'm not going to pull him down just because I have some issues with sometimes of how his shows run or how he handles this or handles that. Like I can, that's the problem. It's like I saw this last week on last time we did Repairing History, where I tried to bring up Brandon Tatum to the group, and I couldn't get one bar into the freaking video before they started bashing on him and telling him that he's wrong. Like, that dude is trying to help the black community, but you all just gang up on him because there's something he said that you didn't agree with, and most of them didn't even really have it right. And it's like, that's the problem. We have to realize that we are, like Vivek was saying, we are in a war. I mean, we were born into the war. The problem is we don't see guns and we don't see military tanks, and that archetype of war has been seared into our brains from early school, right? And because we don't see green helmets and tanks rolling down the street and trenches and airplane and and bombs going off, we don't see that stuff like on a battlefield. We don't think there's a real war going on. But like Yuri Bezmenov's told us, and like we know, ideological subversion, war is 95% non-kinetic, right? It's not to the very end, till it goes too far that the bullets start flying, that the tanks start rolling, right? And now we got these proxy wars that go on. So the idea of warfare has changed so much. We have to understand what war really is, and people don't get that anymore. Like, it's like we are in a war. We've been in a war. It's just not a shooting war, okay? And it's been going on. We were born into it, so we don't see it. Like, we don't see it. A lot of people don't see the cages and the bars that are up around them when it comes to their freedoms and liberties and the narrow information pools that they live in. Like, they don't see the veils. That's why I have the show to talk about the veils of perception and how they go up around us and how they're put there and how the mind control works and how the trauma works and how we have to see past that in order to understand the big picture, so we can actually do something about it, so we can actually be part of the solutions. So in terms of coming together, right, and having that divide and will we be at each other's throats, that's, I think, how we have to tackle it. We have to come together under the common idea of that we are fighting against the establishment. It's the establishment versus the rest of us, right? And that's including the people that unknowingly show for them and unknowingly work for them and work for their agenda. They don't even get that their divisive rhetoric, their divisive points of view, their narrow points of information actually help the establishment. They don't get that. When they come out and they speak out against anti-establishment candidates, and they speak out against the people that are really, really trying to fight the bad guys, they don't even understand they're helping the real big bads that are out there. They don't even get it. There's people out there that swear they're the leaders of the truth movement, and they don't have any truth going on at all, right? They'll swear that they're fighting for the little people and all the people and the ordinary people. They're actually fighting for the establishment to hold those people down. They don't even get it because they can't see past the veils they're in. Again, the point of my whole thing here is my show is to try to get that message across, because in times like this, when we have to unify, it's the most important thing to know. I don't know if that all makes sense. That's one of my epic little rants there, but it's just like, I come into it seeing, man, it's like, just put your differences aside and get the job done. That's what we need right now more than anything else. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. And that's why I'm so afraid of it, I think, is because I can see this future where we get down to the primary, we select a nominee, and then it's not an election day decision. It's literally, we've lost so many people to voting because they can't agree to vote for the Republican person. If we can't, we have no shot, or the Republican Party has no shot if they don't look past the differences. And that's why I kind of like what Nikki Haley says about coming to agreements, coming to consensus and compromise. But I don't like her. So I like a lot of the things she says, but I don't like her. And I don't like anything she says about the wars in Ukraine.
Right. It makes me wonder, like, how many of these people are really bought out, and how many people just don't see through the veils they're in, right? Like, how many people are like, is Nikki Haley just so conditioned to her mindset, or is she just bought off by the establishment? I mean, there's two different ways that you can be used as a tool, right? There's bought out and there's programmed.
I think that Nikki Haley is probably programmed. Like, she was the ambassador. She was in the UN for a long time. That's how she was trained. That's how she uses her brain. So I do believe that she is being controlled by that veil. I don't necessarily think that she's an establishment buy-off. I think that a lot of her talking points are good enough, that she's not so establishment like her anti-establishment talking points aren't like so scripted that they sound made up, if that makes sense. But she's too focused on outside of the United States to be a president.
Yeah, I agree. There's she would not be you know, and there's that she would not be good as president. And the other thing is like who are they going to let in the door, right? Who are the people who don't see the big picture willing to let in the door? And this is again my biggest point about this election is we cannot let the neocons get the GOP back. We can't do it because they're going to come in, they're going to slam the door and lock it behind them. I know they are. They almost did it during the Ron Paul days. Luckily, because we got so many people in the door, they weren't able to shut it completely. And then Trump came out of nowhere and just wrecked the place. And that was awesome. That's what needed to happen. And now he has control of it as the last nominee. He's still in control of the GOP. He has the power in the GOP, and so we need to make sure that he gets that nomination again, or someone like him gets it. You know, that will not allow all the dirty people to back in the door. He got rid of a lot of them. You know, I think even to him it was a surprise how bad it really was. There's a lot of naivety that comes along. I think that's with Vivek. There's a lot of naivety and idealism that comes along with like running for being anti-establishment, and you have a lot to learn once you start to go down that path. And once you get in the door, you even have more to learn. I mean, there's things that are veiled in government that we don't get to see, right? So they go in there and they have all these aha moments, you know, and all these veils are being pulled down in that little world too. Oh, really? I always thought it was this way. Oh, wow, that's how that works. You know, all these things that you think, you know, like AI, it fills in the gaps for you, your brain. And then you get there and you see how it really is. It's kind of like parenthood, right? It's kind of like you're looking at it from the outside and you get there and you're like, whoa, okay, now I get it. You know, but before you couldn't explain it. No one could have explained it to you. You know, you have to go there, do it, to see it, to understand it. And that's just life. So you hope the right people go in and they're strong enough to maintain themselves through it. And that's what we have to hope for every time. I mean, I know that if Ron Paul had gotten in and we got him the nominations, if we could have even at that time, he would have had that have to deal with the same things. And they probably would have said he was working with Russia too. They probably would have pulled the same crap of playing with Trump on him, only he financially couldn't have afforded to do it. And he might not have been as careful, right? Even though he was savvy and smart and understood liberty more than anybody else. He was a great philosopher king, and he was a great person to awaken people to the philosophy of liberty and what an honest presidential candidate can look like, and that we can do it from the grassroots level. He did his job in his time. So in my opinion, he was very successful, even though he never got into the presidency. And he taught us a lot about how the inside works with delegates and so on. The things that the average person don't really understand. The Ron Paul revolutionaries that grew up and became more politically savvy through him now understand how the system works, and were able to be there when the next one came running through. And now with Trump, we know even more about how the deep state works and what they're going to do. So every election we learn more and more and more and more, and they show more and more of their hand. So we become stronger as a result. And it's a fight that keeps going on and on and on. And in our lifetimes, Katelyn, it will continue to go on. Our kids will end up having to pick up this fight and continue the fight. And hopefully we are setting good examples, and we're setting them up for success, right, through what we learn. And that's what it's really about. Tim Pool had a really interesting video today. I'm probably going to review at some point. It was like a 30-minute video, so I'm not going to pull it up now. But he talked about how the culture war works and how we lost these elections in this midterm, this off year election stuff, and it was kind of predictable. But that by the time these people are caught up in this wokeness, and they're caught up in these life-killing kind of like ideas, well, these people aren't really reproducing. So as long as we check out of the system and we keep producing, reproducing, right, and stick to our own generationally, and he's talking about generational thinking, and that's what I liked about what he was saying. Because that's what you have to do in this war. It's a generational war. It's not one that you fight in 4 years. It's a generational war. It's going to take our entire lifetime of talking and teaching and doing in order to get the next generation ready for the next leg of that war. And then if we do it long enough, we'll be winning it. And we'll eventually will be winning reality. But right now, the bad guys are controlling reality. So we're fighting to win reality. And, that's the point of my channel. That's the point of this idea that sits before you, right? Called winning reality. It's that, we're bringing in a solution-minded culture as through this anti-establishment coalition now that we're calling it. And we're trying to fulfill that destiny of starting this thing off. And then hopefully through future generations, fulfilling that the prophecy of the idea, right? Fulfilling the idea itself. So that's what it's about. But yeah, it's going to take some time, and we just got to keep doing what we can do, and and through hell or high water, through everything we learn, just keep the innocents safe, our innocents safe, right? Our children safe, and in time they're going to wean themselves out of this thing, and hopefully that'll make it a lot easier to start winning more and more and more and more. And in the short term, we got to have the fighters in there. We got to have the people who are willing to swing and hit and not be scared and fight fearlessly for us. We got to support fearlessly for them. That's why we do it. What you guys think out there in the crowd? I ain't ignoring you. I ain't ignoring you. What you guys thinking out there? I see a lot of talking trash and truth. Yeah, talk about the epic rant. Yeah, listen. Because it's for all of us, man. We got to do it. Look at the politicians like my kids. Why can't you just do the things? Just do it. You're raised better than this. Yes, exactly. They've convinced us for power.
Drunks and politicians are all very similar.
We need a bath. Yeah, we do need a bath. Yeah, and thank you for being active both on YouTube and Twitter tonight, Snafu. I appreciate it. We need to protect the kids. That would deter us so many who have fingered multiple pies. Yeah, like we saw last week on Old School Watch Party Sunday, which this week we're gonna be watching this documentary called. Last week was the Sound of Freedom watch along, was a special. It was an old school, new school, and that's the entire thing's over on Rumble. So hopefully you guys will swing by and watch it. Actually, that video is doing really well over there, but it's a great movie and it's really inspiring. But this week we're going to be looking at this thing called The Trap, and it's a documentary I saw a long time ago, and it's really interesting about how they took this how a government changed and how they adopted this idea of game theory during the Cold War and how it kind of shaped our politics and how we view liberty, right? And it's a really great. It's a really good documentary, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. I like it. It's really eye-opening. It makes you think about a lot of things, and it's a fun little ride. I think it's a BBC documentary or something like that, but it's a fun little ride that makes a lot of great points. So definitely tune in this Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern with myself and Talking Trash and Truth for Old School Watch Party Sundays. Tomorrow night, a very special Repairing History Together. If you are a fan of that show and are following that line, you're going to want to be there for that one. Format changes and a new approach to things. So definitely worth checking out. If you do frequent that show, you're going to want to catch this one. This one's important. So I hope to see you there. And then a winning Saturday night. This winning Saturday night at 9 p.m. MLS Law. MLS. Making Law Simple Network. I had to reprogram myself right there. Someone I've been wanting to get on for a while. We're going to talk about YouTubing, sociology. Like he mentioned some things last week when he was on the Halloween show, which thank you, Katelyn, again for being there for the whole ride and helping out. T3 was incapacitated. I know you jumped in for that, and I really appreciate you being there. You would have been there anyways, but I really appreciate you deciding to step up and help out with that. That really means a lot, and I really appreciate that.
I'm sorry I wasn't as peppy as I should. I know that my pep was bad. I'm sorry.
Oh, you were fine. You were fine. You were perfect. It was great. We had a good time. We had a really good time. You had a big night the night before, so I totally get it. I've had to follow big parties before, so it was okay.
I had so much fun though. I that was such a good night. I mean, I really enjoyed it. So I was thrilled you had Valhalla and MLS on. I'm so glad that connection got made.
Oh yeah. That was great. And I've been saying hi to him for a while, and he actually is a member, and I really appreciate him being a member of the Winner Circle. And I need to actually get over there and get a membership going on his as well. So I'm gonna be stopping by this week. I'll be making appearances over in his streams, and I'll make sure that I do that. But he talked about seeing. I realized he sees kind of things the same way, kind of like I did with Gosney. It took me a while to get to know him, and then when I heard it, I was like, oh, that's what I want to talk to him about. So I heard that night. I was like, oh man, now I know we got Star Wars. We're gonna talk Star Wars. We're gonna talk sociology and what's going on in the society, how we can make the justice system better, like how what can we do in there to uncorrupt it and stop the bastardization of what we're seeing today with things like what's happening to Trump, Alex Jones, and so many others. There's just so many others to name. The Whitmer kidnapping, the hoax trial, what Radix Verum covers. And there's so much more. There's so many I can't even think of them all right now, but they're just happening constantly. Right, the injustice in the justice system is what we're going to talk about. That too. As well as just what other things we connect on just as human beings. So I'm looking forward to having him on this Saturday night. I've heard nothing but wonderful things. I've seen nothing but wonderful things from him. So I can't wait to have him on. We're going to have a good time doing that.
Is he coming fully clothed or
I think so.
or in a scary unitard?
Man, I wish he would have wore that the second night. I couldn't ask him. I put it on twice in a row. Yeah. But boy, he was awesome over on the Expert that night. He had me rolling on the floor, man. It was so
I'm still
good.
traumatized.
It was so good. And he would sing it and he would spill the stuff all down the front of his shirt. It's like, oh, what happened? Did your message get missed? What happened, buddy? It did not show up. Oh, I don't know. Sometimes I don't have any any blocks on things, only the porn bot like words on my channel. So I don't know. Sometimes YouTube just takes things out, and they don't even show you when or why. So I didn't see. Let me see. What did you say? Got Gilded Cages. I got that one. I got this one. And that's all I got on this end before you asked about it. So I'm sorry if YouTube did that to you. We had nothing to do with it. I promise you that. So Katelyn, I know you. What have you been up to? Let's talk about you for a minute. What did you got coming up? What you been doing?
I have been finishing up on school and working. So I'm closing in on my last semester and working really hard to just get it done. I have been neglecting the YouTubes, if I'm honest. That's why when you said, "Hey," today, I was like, "Yes, let's do it." I'm so excited.
Awesome. Yeah, something told me to give you a call about this.
I don't have any plans right now. I'm just trying to survive through school. I have these 2 classes and then one more class next term and I'm done. And I want to quit right now. So it's taking everything in me to not quit.
Oh, yeah, just breathe deeply. It's okay. Do it at your own pace. I've always encouraged you just to do it at your own pace. There's no rush on anything. You're going to be great. Whatever you decide to do, whenever you decide to do it, it will be here. And you have lots of friends, so don't worry about that. You do it at your own pace. Don't let anything or anyone ever rush you into anything ever. And just if you took a year off and came back, you'd still be fine. And did it again, huh? You could adjust. Hey Thomas, you could adjust the top in live chat yourself. I'll try to remember to change that default to live chat. I didn't even think about that. So I do see that, and I don't ever think to change it. But you can change that option yourself, by the way. Just to let you know. You can do that.
Thank you, T3. Yeah, winning. I appreciate it. I wanna like dedicate some time to my YouTube channel, but I really I have to get through school first.
Yep.
I'm drowning.
You got family, you got school, you got a job, all those things come before YouTube and anything else and any kind of other stuff. So believe me, hey, when you're not around, we think about you, but we know that you're out there doing what you got to do, and we're always here when you come back, and T-Rex in Trucking More says quitting is for quitters and you ain't no quitter, Katelyn.
I love you
Thank you.
all. You
Thank you
all
for the
are so
$5
amazing.
super chat. And oh yeah, I got until I get something better.
Oh my.
Love it so much every time.
It's so out. It's so out. It's in. You think the word is smack, huh? Wow. Interesting. He said something was calling out the thieves messing with the pie is not allowed because Google is doing it too. Nope. Wow. No talk of pie. Okay. Uh-oh. That was the wrong one, but
Oh my.
thank you for the $10 super chat. Talking trash and juice. Always sending Katelyn love. I'm always here for you, baby twin. B-Day twin. Sorry.
B-Day
Birthday
twin.
B-Day twin.
Oh, I love you, T3. Thank you. And thanks for sending winning money to say you love me.
Or Enya, I don't know if Enya's still here or listening, but if you are, Enya, I owed you one too. We'll give you the since you joined the winner circle tonight, we'll give you this one.
Up good for Vietnam, it has to do. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing. It's cold. I can tell you all about it. I mean, look at this thing. Gonna try to get out of anything thing.
I need to update the faces on that. I got some ideas.
I love it so much.
I think I tried to update it and like it was going like can't detect faces. I was like, come on, really? you did before. That's how I got him to work. So I might have to redo that one a little bit. But I will keep Attorney Tom as my singing. The story behind this video is like I put a video together called Gummy Bear Time. So if you look at the first LawTube is Getting Weird episode, it's just really a lot of the singing heads. But the whole premise was they were doing this competition, right? And then Attorney Tom, this LawTube competition where the lawyers were singing back and forth on the stream to each other, trying to outdo each other, right? And then, because Attorney Tom isn't really part of the LawTube kind of gang, but he's friends with Rackets. He pops in with this like well-produced like Gummy Bear Time one, right? And it really was just it was like a music video. It looked really good compared to everybody else's. And then Rackets was like, fuck you. And then, it's a musical thing. You have to go look at it. Maybe T3 can grab the link. It's the very first LawTube is Getting Weird. And so in that, he pops in to advertise his new album called Gummy Bear Time. And really, I made Gummy Bear Time, which is a bunch of weird stuff like that put together. So I think it's on Rumble. I think you can go look at it on Rumble. Gummy Bear Time is there, the entire one. And yeah, it is there. It's on Rumble. I'll find that while I'm talking. So I sent it to Rackets as something he could, because he started eating gummy bears like on his local streams. He's got, should I eat more than one, guys? Should I eat two? Should I? I'm like, yeah, eat two. And so, so I made this as a kind of, because he loves Attorney Tom. I guess they have this little rivalry. It's something to make him trip out while he was eating his gummy bears. So the whole idea was Attorney Tom jumped in with this. He made this album called Gummy Bear Time. He was trying to advertise it in the middle of their little competition, and that was just kind of funny, right? But then I actually made the album Gummy Bear Time. I actually made the whole thing. So let me see. I'm gonna find it and post a link in the chat. Hang tight. It's way back there. So This Christmas episode, I don't even know if I'm going to do. See, last year I made Christmas episodes for all the LawTube. It's getting weird stuff, but since I don't have a parody universe going on right now, outside of that one lingering in the distance, I don't think I'm going to do another Christmas thing this year. Where to find that thing at, man? Hold on, 7. Should keep the link handy because it's really funny. It's like one of those hidden classics. If you want to watch it, I'll find it. I know because I watched it the other night, so I know it's there. I think when it came over, when I pushed everything over so I could clean out my channel and get remonetized, and I think it came over with that, so it might be closer to the front than I think. There it is. Okay, I found it. So yeah, Gummy Bear Time is a lot of fun. Copy, paste, put it out there in Rumble, put it out there in StreamYards, so you guys can do it. Check out the Gummy Bear Time by Attorney Time. I hope I spelled attorney right. There you go. There you go. So that's where all of them are at. There's a whole bunch more in there. It's a lot of fun. And it was really fun for me because it was like me learning how to edit better and more. And I learned a lot of little tricks. And, you know, it was me working with AI. Yeah, thanks. I got in there and got it. And yeah, so and the other one that you need to watch, and this is like one of the best. This was like one of the best videos as far as viewership goes, and the LawTube is getting weird series. Actually, that's just the whole playlist. So it's the very first one of the series. Let's see where I can find the whole. Let's advertise the whole playlist instead. How about that? Because LawTube is getting weird. There it is. It's the first. Let me see videos. Let me see. I almost had it and I lost it. Where is it at? Right near the top now since I clicked on it. Oh, I'm still looking. I do have a lot of playlists. A lot of them are hidden, but I'm gonna try to go back every now and then and ensure what in the world? Where'd it go? I hate it when I lose stuff like that. I just had it. Push it to the back or something? I hope it didn't delete it. That is stupid. I'll find it in a second. If you can beat me to that one, D3, we'll have a race. Don't you challenge me? I'll go do it. Over 50 playlists? I sure do. Wow. Well, I don't know what I did with it. It disappeared on me.
How many?
I have 73 playlists, but a lot of them are just like playlists I make when I'm like researching stuff, and I think very few of them are public. It's probably on my front page and people could find it very easily, and I'm just like racking. Oh, here it is. LawTube is getting weird. How do I get a save? How do I get to share it? I'm trying to look at it in studio like a dumbass. Here's part 1. And this is the one with the everything I just explained in it. All right, LawTube getting weird part 1. This is even the first episode. Oh, and look, I just typed the name of it with the link. All right, and that's not even the first episode. It's just the first one of the one I'm talking about. It's the beginning of it. There's actually a beginning. There's actually some videos I think before that in the playlist. I wish I could just because it's the first one is like while LawTube is getting weird. Ricada responds to public threat by Monty and the Legion. So that's the very first one in the series. But the second one is Ricada Law's arch villains unite. The Legion of Injustice is born. So that sets up the whole premise of the series. And then you have LawTube is getting weird part 1. And that is the kickoff to the musical aspect of it. So the whole, if you don't know, the whole thing is music. The whole thing's a musical, right? Pretty much all done in musical, except for towards the end we do a little bit more spoken words and stuff. But for the majority of it, you're going to see all these guys like as band, in bands and singing and playing parts in different videos. The epic Tokyo Grift videos in there as part of it. It's a fun little ride if you love LawTube and you want to see a snapshot in time that when LawTube had just really gotten hot and there were a bunch of trolls after everybody, all ganging up from different sides of the internet to take on Nick Ricada and the gang. the cancel
Mhm.
and all that stuff. It's all about that and how that turns out, and it brings us up to around to present day to the trials and tribulations and so on. It's a fun ride. And then I even included some, some recent stuff, some after the conclusion stuff with behind the scenes talking Tokyo Grift with Max Mira and the Ricada Law at the Big Bash in Nashville. There's a couple ones I add to them from time to time. So fun ride. If you guys want to enjoy that, sometimes it's a fun, great music in it. Like I think the way I put it in the recap is that there was over 40 different bands and performances of different genres. Like let's see, we'll actually play the recap. Let's play the recap just for fun, just for some old retro fun here as we close things out. Let me do that. Where is it? Here we go. This is the series recap I put out before. I just had the playlist. Why am I looking for it in a different place? Oh man. Okay, I know how to find that real fast. That's the Christmas playlist. That's the Christmas playlist. All right, there's the other playlist. We go to this. Okay. We're gonna watch the recap real quick.
Let's do it. Come on, creative genius. Show me what you got.
I'm working. Have you ever watched the series, by the way? If you haven't watched
I believe so. I believe so. I think it's been a while.
Okay. So let me put this up, and here we go, guys. It's really short. It's only like 3 minutes, but this will give you an idea of it, and this probably will help me make sure I get the stream copyrighted. That was copyright proof, but that's all right. So, by the way, if I do clip this out, you guys can find this. If I just decide to clip it out, you guys can find this in my playlist, right? So there you go. But anyways, on my channel, just look for the LawTube is Getting Weird series recap. Let me share this out, put it on stage, and let's move it. All right, guys, here we go.
Can't touch this. Can't touch this.
We definitely should set that up. We should start talking about that.
We're gonna teach you a lesson.
Okay.
I can feel like hop. That was big, right?
Sure did.
I've never been out with a boy before.
Oh, me neither.
Oh, no more Yankee, my wanky.
Fiona and me do it in my van every Sunday.
He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He sleeps all night and he works all day.
Guy sucks. He sucks. He's lying fucking time. All the time. You're just a liar.
Well, that's the end.
You can care all you want. I Instagram every meal I've had.
Yeah, that works.
You wanna go shut
Oh my
shut
gosh,
your life.
Oh my gosh.
You can
dip your feet every once in a little while. X-rated, I want you,
I kind of wish I could be fooled. Isn't that neat? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, there's a moose on the loose. 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 She's up all night to get some. I'm up all night to get some. She's up all night.
Okay, I haven't seen that one, but I was looking through. I've seen a couple of these.
Go. What are you waiting for? Tell him Nick sent you. Hi, everybody. It's your favorite YouTube lawyer. I just wanted to say that I have a guilty pleasure that I must confess.
Hey,
to
James.
immediately.
I see you.
You see, when I've had a rough day, you know what I mean?
Off YouTube.
The kids are driving me crazy. LawTube drama, professional trolls trying to cancel and sue me. I'm boomering my show back to the Stone Age. I stub my toe going for the Baldo and fall straight down on my erection. That's pretty much every day for me. Well, there is one thing on those dark days I know I can turn to that'll make everything all right. So I hop on YouTube and I go immediately over the Winning Realities channel and start marathoning his videos. Doesn't matter if I've seen them once or 100 times. They always bring a smile to my face and a good laugh when I need it most. I escape into the lawtainment universe to see what Rockstar Nick is up to. And if Monty and his gang of misfit cancel trolls have finally foiled the LawTube gang, there's really nothing better. So why am I telling you this? Because I want you to get over there right now and make sure you are subscribed. Ring that bell too, because YouTube sucks. Look, I hate losing. That's why I love winning. Winning reality, that is. And you should too. Right now. Go. What are you waiting for? Tell him Nick sent you.
There you go.
Yes.
You have to watch the rest yourself, guys. Yeah, there it is. So I probably most of that I'm probably getting clipped out for copyright, but you know, that's the one thing. That's a sacrifice I make. So you have to make sure those videos stay up. So I have to make sure I get no more copyrights on anything else. So, anyways, if you didn't see that and you're still here as part of the Rewatch crew, who I love the most, they're awesome. Rewatch crew rocks the house. Then head on over because you can always watch the playlist. And yeah, thanks for sock puppeting tonight, there, Sheriff. We appreciate the sock puppeting. But yeah, and touching that, you know, when I blew up the Elon story and the fact that he never actually went there, that whole camp counselor thing went out the window, didn't it? Yep. Anyways, guys, we are out of here. So I'll be back tomorrow night with a very special Repairing History Together. Hope to see you then. Saturday night, Winning Saturday Night with MLS, and Old School Watch Party Sunday on Sundays with T3. And we're going to be watching The Trap this week because it's really good. Come check it out. Katelyn's going to be around, but first she's going to be a mom, and then she's going to be a student, and then she's going to be an employee, and then she's going to be back on YouTube some days, and some days she will just be doing all the rest of the things that matter more. Katelyn,
I'll
say
be
good
around. Thank you all for coming, Winning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And until next time, keep on winning.
friendship that